everyone, welcome to another episode of the Electric Underground podcast / videocast, and today's episode is a very special one for two reasons. The first reason is it marks the debut of me talking about shmup soundtracks, because I don't really talk about them as much as I probably should, and also because I am joined by a special guest, a massive fan of the channel. I just get letters from him all day, every day, begging to come on the show, Iain Cook. And for those who do not know, Iain Cook is part of quite a popular and famous band called Chvrches. So he is a legit professional musician. I'm sure buying houses with tour money. Here he is. Welcome to the show.
Just buying houses with tour money.
Yeah.
What an introduction. Thank you, Mark.
In Morocco, I'm assuming.
In Morocco, wherever. It doesn't matter. There's
all over Europe.
Anyway, thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Yes, and I wanted to let everyone know that I find Iain to be an inspiration because you look at his career, he's had all these massive successes, including recently opening up for Coldplay. And now with all that work and all that effort, he has reached the zenith of his career by being a guest on this show. So congratulations to you. You did it. Your dream has come true.
I can retire. This is brilliant. No, this is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to talking about nerdy shit.
And I'm really excited because you're going to have a lot better insight on music composition and all that technical side of things. Whereas, I'm like a little bit more of a layman when it comes to music in terms of how it's put together, the instruments, all that stuff. So I'm really excited.
You have the hot takes, though.
Yes. You can always count on me for those. So they'll be coming. Don't you worry. And speaking of hot takes, I probably should preface how this top 20 is put together so people understand. So this top 20 was voted by the fans of this channel. I think like 500, 600 responses or something like that. And then we ranked them all. So this is top 20 shmups as selected by a large group of shmup players. And this has its pros and it has its cons. So the pros is that a lot of these games do have amazing, awesome soundtracks. And usually when you're talking to fellow shmup players, these are the soundtracks people are going to be talking about because they are very prevalent and popular. The drawback, though, is that the more niche, kind of lesser known shmups, even among shmup players, they're not really as heavily represented on this list. So do not take this list as verbatim. This is the top 20 shmup soundtracks, especially because the genre is so heavy with amazing soundtracks. I mean, it's like RPGs and shmups are like the GOAT tier genres for amazing soundtracks. So you're going to get...
Totally agree.
Yeah, so there's no way you can actually definitively parse out a top 20. But I think this list is a great entry point into understanding the soundtracks of the genre, what people connect with. It's a really nice selection too of different games through different eras. So yeah, hold your comments a little bit because yes, we're not saying these are the definitive top 20, especially because it's music. It's really hard to say definitively. You could say like these are the top 20 best popular shmup soundtracks. I think it's a good way to think about it. Absolutely. Any thoughts, Iain, before we jump into the list?
Yeah, like you say, it's like it's not definitive. It's entirely subjective. But yeah, a really varied bunch. Like going from full on kind of industrial techno metal shredding, squirrely as you like to call it.
He's squirreling it up.
All the way to like kind of folk influenced sort of ethereal ambient sounds and everything in between. It's a fantastic, really musically rich genre. Much overlooked, I think. The problem for me a lot of the time is like I've been playing shmups since I probably, if you count Space Invaders, since 1979. So I love the genre so much, but I haven't really massively focused in on the music. I mean, despite being
maybe it's is it like a little bit? I kind of know where you're coming from here because like when I watch YouTubing now. And someone starts doing a video essay, I'm like, this is work now. I don't even start this.
Do you know what I mean?
Shit.
It's a different part of your brain.
Yeah, you don't want it. Yeah. Like when I'm on YouTube, I'm usually watching like random bullshit. I'm not actually watching video game content anymore because it starts to feel a little bit like work. Like I start listening to someone talking about a shmup or something. I'm like, what? So I can actually understand.
It's a different part of your brain. Like, I play video games to turn off from music and everything like that.
Yeah.
And besides, like, when you're playing a shmup, the sound of the effects and the explosions usually drown out the music mostly. So
yes.
You're like, can I really hear what's going on? But no, this has been great because you invited me on the show to do this because I've properly been immersing myself and listening to these soundtracks and loving every minute of it.
Yes.
So it's been a bit of an education for me.
And I am betting that the next Church's album is just going to have just some, Dodonpachi DaiOuJou, get some of the instruments in there, sneaking them in past the rest of the band. They're like, oh, sick, what are these instruments? I just came up with it.
Any excuse for 80s shredding is all right by me.
Uh-huh. Fantastic. Okay, let's get started with number 20 on the list, Cho Ren Sha. Now, this is like, we're beginning right in on the chiptunes here. Were you familiar with Cho Ren Sha before listening to the soundtrack?
The game? No, absolutely was not. Was that a PC Engine game?
It's on a PC, but it's not the PC Engine. It's like some crazy, I'll edit in what it is, but it's like some crazy Japanese PC that you had to go to, a flea market to get the freaking game. It's like a deep cut even for shmups. It's a very, very popular within the genre game though, because it's really forward thinking and really well made, and like one of the very first like PC shmups ever, maybe, as far as like being really good and legit. It's an awesome game, and the soundtrack of it is, I wrote in my notes, it kind of reminded me of like if you took SNES style instruments like leads and then like Genesis MIDI guitars and you like shove them together. That's kind of the sound of this game.
So kind of the best of both worlds, is what you're saying.
Best and worst of both worlds at the same time.
Let me see. So it's 1995. Yeah. Oh, so it was released on PC and the X68000 by Sharp. Okay.
Yes, X68000 Sharp. It's like this random Japanese computer that 6 people on Earth own.
Ah, right. Okay. So it has like a built-in FM synthesizer apparently.
Yeah,
and that's where all the chiptune stuff has come from. It's not like pre-recorded, like pre-baked.
No, not at all. This is OG game, and like I said, it has a very unique sound to it, and so I can also see why that makes it so popular. Because it probably stands on its own in terms of its instruments.
The sound chip that they put in that Sharp machine was first used in the arcade cabinet of Marble Madness, which also has some really great chiptune music.
I've heard that. Yes, I've heard that. Purely because of the music. Like, does anyone care about the game? Probably not. But those tunes.
I think you're gonna get some comments on that one, dude.
Okay, I retract that statement.
Some flame.
I retract it. I don't even know it that well.
Oh, it was like a trackball, right? So it was really fun to Well, it was kind of like an isometric 3D thing where you're sort of guiding a marble down this really kind of more like Monkey Ball, but from an, from an isometric perspective. But the music was amazing. So yeah, I guess this is the same OPM chip by Yamaha. But it's like my first impressions of it were how fizzy it was. Like it's just like bursts with high frequencies the whole time, like distorted high frequencies.
Prepare yourself. We're gonna get a lot of these as we go.
It's a tough lesson.
We're gonna get a lot of these as we go. Yeah. Well, what's interesting about the music, I was just writing my random notes on sort of like composition and stuff, is I think the music of this game, just from a game design perspective, is actually incredibly important because the background of this game just repeats over and over throughout all the stages, except like the final stage, you get some cool extra stuff. But for the most part, I'm assuming because of like limitations and all that kind of stuff, like the game has just one background. It's cool, but there's just one. So it really, really relies on the OST to tell you, okay, you're actually in stage 3 now. Oh, actually, you're in stage 4 now. Because if you just play this game in silence, you're like, what stage am I on?
Like the same game.
Yeah, so you really need that soundtrack. So I did note that sometimes shmup soundtracks tend to have a real, okay, is this track 6? Is this track 4? They kind of all blend together. I think this game does a pretty good job of differentiating the tracks and giving them all a different feel to it.
Yeah, it's quite varied, isn't it, stylistically? There's bits where I really felt like it had almost a kind of Sega like Outrun type feel about it. You know, that kind of breezy, sunny sound to it. Which is weird because, like you say, the background is just like almost pure black.
Cyberpunk.
Deep space.
Yeah.
It's a cool looking game though.
I was saying on some of the tracks where it kind of had a... actually, let's pull them up. All right, we did it. We did it. We managed to share audio.
Excellent.
Okay.
Sounding crystal clear.
Editor's note. The track we're listening to is Pleasure Trip. For this track, I really wanted to highlight it because what I love about this track and I love about kind of the later tracks in the OST is that they have this kind of upbeat tempo to them, but there's this underlying sort of melancholy to the way like the leads and the instruments and stuff that's like happy but kind of sad at the same time. I really like it. What are your thoughts on kind of the sound and composition of the track?
That's interesting. I didn't get the kind of melancholy thing. I think it's just because it's making you feel something.
Yeah, maybe. I never feel things, so I don't know how to feel. What is happiness? I don't know that emotion.
But yeah, you're right. I think that's one of the things that I'd noted about it as well, was that the melody writing was really strong. And yeah, that kind of bright, sunny day, Sega Outrun type music, you know?
Maybe it's just the way that the leads sound, the way they sort of fade or have this weird stretch to them. I don't know. That's what makes me feel like it's kind of sad, even though it's happy.
They're doing a lot of what's called glissando, which is where a note like sort of bends up to the next note, so the
exactly. Yes.
And yeah, I guess
a lot of glistening.
Does have a slightly mournful quality about it. So yeah.
Yes. Kind of reminds me a little bit of After Laughter by Paramore, where it's like upbeat and happy, but it's actually depressed if you pay attention. Yeah, like that.
The dance cry thing.
The vibe. Maybe I'm reading into it a bit, but that's what I was getting.
No, it's cool.
Well, what was your standout track for the album?
I like the, there's a track for stage 2 called Justice of Galaxy.
Switching
the
to
titles
Justice
are great.
of Galaxy.
Justice of Galaxy.
Switch.
What I liked about this was the kind of 90s style house music where they have like the piano stabs.
Yes.
I think that's
I do
just
know
so
that.
cool. Because it doesn't sound anything like a piano, do you know? It's just like...
It's a madman's organ. I don't know what it is.
Working with the limitations of the FM synthesizer, and then the panning stuff goes mad. So I think that was like not that common with the 90s FM chips, was that each channel had like the ability to kind of stereo pan.
Yeah.
I think maybe by the mid-90s, which when this came out, they'd sort of figured out the tech so that each channel had its own individual pan. But I think like pre-Genesis, I'm not 100% sure about this, but everything was kind of straight down the middle, like mono.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's probably a way to fudge it, but it really broadens out what you can do as a composer, because you can put different instruments in different parts of the stereo field, and like this, you can hear it sort of like mad panning to the left and right. It just makes the thing sound a lot more engaging.
It invokes like a carnival gone mad. You know, you walk into a carnival and things are on fire, people are getting shot. It's just pure madness.
Did you have any... totally. Did you have any idea what the title actually means? I didn't look that up.
Oh, it's a shmup title, dude.
Should I just not ask those questions?
Don't even think.
So, Mushihimesama. No. Well, actually, Mushihimesama's Bug Princess, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Anyway, I digress.
I love shmup titles, but this is maybe my read on Japanese titling and maybe why I like it so much, is like they're just kind of going for a vibe with the title rather than trying to actually say anything specifically. They're like, Justice of Galaxy. That sounds sick. That sounds sick. Yeah, I think that's about as deep as it goes.
It's clear that they're going for some kind of sci-fi narrative anyway, given the rest of the titles. Planet the Earth, We Love the Earth. I don't know.
Pleasure
But
Trip?
my favorite title of all... Yeah, well, maybe not. My favorite title of all, though, and maybe we should talk about this in general, is the boss music.
Yes.
Which is called Cooking on the Hell.
Yes.
God knows what that means.
Fantastic English in action.
Exactly.
See, what I was saying earlier about like Genesis mode. This is Genesis mode right now with this opener.
And what exactly do you mean by Genesis mode guitars?
They have that kind of like really fuzzy sort of quality to them. That's fuzzy chugging. You know, that's a Genesis mode guitar.
What about the sort of lead guitars? Do you like those, or is it just the kind of rhythm guitars that you're not such a fan of?
I like leads way more than rhythm guitars for chiptunes.
Right.
The leads are what make it in a chiptune. because the rhythm stuff in chiptunes often is just kind of like this. I get it's there, why it's there, but it's all about the leads, in my opinion. I like the leads, yeah.
Yamaha, who developed the sound chip, also used that chip for like the DX series of keyboards, like the later and the sort of more budget ones. Because I think in the 80s, the DX7 was like the synth that everybody had to have, and then all the records in the 80s sounded like the DX7.
Yeah,
and it's that kind of really identifiable, kind of thin, I don't know, but it was notoriously difficult to program.
Oh, God. DX. And it better be a George Michael song.
You put me on the spot. I mean, 100% there was like wham stuff in the 80s that was.
It better be. Let's just talk about George Michael. Which George Michael song?
Have you seen the Netflix documentary on Wham? That just came
I'm
out
a massive
last
George
week,
Michael fan, so yes.
Massive digression. Let's get back to
we need to discuss Wham
the boss music
as much as possible in this episode.
Yeah, maybe off the stream we'll do that. I don't know. But we were going to talk about boss music, weren't we? And like,
yes. How do we feel about the boss tune?
We were gonna write. I feel like it has the. See this one. See the one that we were listening to before, "Cooking on the Hell." This is quite an upbeat, sort of happy sounding boss theme. Like it has the high energy.
Yeah, I kind of like it though, because I feel like a lot of boss tunes, they're always going for like the
doom. Yeah, the chugging doom.
Yeah, so like whenever I'm doing, for example, like background tunes for my channel, I never usually select boss themes because they're always just. But I kind of like it when the boss themes are a little bit more playful and fun. So I like it. I actually quite like it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the purpose of boss music is to, in some ways, to sort of induce a sense of panic, right? That's what I've been noticing listening, like across the top 20. It's like if I had just like got on one credit to the end of this game, I would be crapping myself. Do you know what I mean? The heartbeat going like.
Also, boss themes. Some shmups have multiple boss themes. Some shmups have one boss theme. But I also feel like boss themes need to be like more immediately catchy and less lead in and atmospheric usually. They sometimes do that, but usually the traditional boss theme is like, let's get started.
It's hard.
It's hard right away, yeah.
Well, I think I like the boss themes in this game. I think that the overall composition across the whole soundtrack is really consistent as well. Like, I don't feel like... I mean, you could say it was maybe a little samey, but like given the actual tools that they had to work with,
what are you gonna do?
It's actually a really impressive piece of work.
Yeah, and also if you listen to a lot of soundtracks of other shmups from this era, this soundtrack to me feels a lot more dynamic and has a lot more going on than a lot of its peers. Yeah. So a strong start, I think. So I approve. Yeah. Okay, we accept Cho Ren Sha. I do. Here. What are your thoughts on Cho Ren Sha?
No, absolutely. It's again, I don't really know the game, but I should probably dig into it.
Yeah.
Do you rate the game generally in terms of?
Cho Ren Sha is
not a full review, but okay.
Cho Ren Sha is a fantastic shmup. Yes, top tier.
Great. Okay, I'll dig it out.
What I love about Cho Ren Sha, and I think why it holds up so well, it's one of those like earlier shmups that is starting to do more, what I would consider more like advanced shmup design. Like it's starting to move towards that, despite the limited hardware. So I really respect the game a lot for that. And it still holds up super well in terms of people playing it and loving it. So yeah, it's a very strong game, I would say.
Amazing. So it belongs here. We're happy with that.
Yes. Good job so far. And then splitting the 20 slot because they had the exact same number of votes, and that's quite rare. No, you see I don't think there's any other splits, is Deathsmiles. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on Deathsmiles as an OST? Now, as a game, I love Deathsmiles, but as an OST, I feel like it's kind of an interesting one compared to its cave brethren, because there's never been a point in my day where I've sat down and said, you know what I really need right now? I really need to listen to some Deathsmiles. I don't think it has quite that same, like we'll see other cave games on this list, quite that same like standalone listenability. But the soundtrack of Deathsmiles is so unique and so fitting to the theming of that game that I can see it changing in a good way. Like I wouldn't replace it. What are your thoughts on the Deathsmiles?
But you wouldn't listen to it away from the game, is what you're saying.
I wouldn't. Well, I think some people do, but I personally
I actually really love this soundtrack because I'm kind of a bit of a goth. You know, I really love I love goth
the
sort of. Could you stick on So there's a track at like 46 minutes that I noted as being awesome, and there's...
Okay, here we go.
Oh, I mean, it's lush, man. Listen to the harp.
Oh yeah, fantastic.
It has a kind of gothic, magical, sort of ethereal quality about it. Anything with that kind of Castlevania style organ music is immediately top tier for me.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna get to
this is boss music for sure.
So what I would say about, you brought up the Castlevania comparison. Now I love Deathsmiles and I like the OST, but I think the difference between this OST and Castlevania is the Castlevania tunes are super catchy, or like crazy catchy. Like I'm quite sure Dr. Dre was listening to Castlevania when he came up with his
it would
G-Funk.
not surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, you listen to G-Funk, you're like, is he playing Castlevania right now? Versus like Deathsmiles, it has really great composition and all that stuff, at least from what I can tell, but it doesn't have that like catchiness like Castlevania has, at least for me.
Yeah. I think this is an interesting thing for me as well, like looking at because I started to sort of listen to these not in the order that they were voted in the poll, but in the order that they were released.
Nice.
So this is obviously quite a bit later.
Yeah.
Was it 2007, was it?
Yes, and this is also Cave's most popular shmup. By far.
Really?
By a landslide. There's there's not even close. Deathsmiles is like 5 times more popular than the rest of the Cave games.
I had no idea. That's crazy.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that, so I like to share that little snippet. Yeah.
But yeah, by this point, there really was there was no kind of self-imposed or no kind of imposed hardware limitations.
Nope.
In terms of actually composing the music, because what we're listening to here is basically like a studio recording. You know, Namiki obviously has all his favorite synths and his favorite guitar player, and you know everything.
He's got the organs going,
and the organs and the harpsichord. Oh, listen to this. This is what timestamp is this?
We are currently at 48:46.
48:46. This to me, I mean, this could be from Castlevania, Symphony of the Night or something. You know, I'm immediately down with any kind of skeletons, bats, organs, Dracula. You know what I mean?
I love it too.
Shit. Yeah, so I guess my point is that what you're hearing in the game is like streaming audio. So like highly compressed, really crunchy, like low bit streaming audio, because that's what they could fit on the board.
Yeah.
So it's great to be able to listen to like a CD rip of it like this, where you can hear it in all its hi-fi glory.
Yeah.
But I think it does really change a great comparison, like contrast with Cho Ren Sha, because you know, you were limited to like 4 channels of FM synthesis, and what that composer did with that for that whole soundtrack, how do you do that? Like, it's insane how varied, like you said, how varied it is.
They go hard.
And how detailed it is. But really, like, it's less interesting to me when you have all of the instruments at your disposal, and you know what I mean? It's like you could write a symphony, you could write whatever.
You know what? I'm a little bit contrarian on that, actually, because I feel like in one way I definitely get, and a lot of people who love chiptunes argue this, but I almost feel like when you have that much freedom, then it's like almost a heavier test now, because now you have to make a lot more editorial decisions on your part. Like, do I put the organ there or do I not? You have to decide that. Versus like Cho Ren Sha, it's like, okay, we could put like a drum there. We could put, you know, it's like very limited.
The lead sound.
Yeah.
Totally.
So I mean, I also do respect the prospect of, okay, you need to make this big, swelling goth dance hall magic music, and coming up with this, I think that would be quite difficult.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely, you've really hit on something that I've come up against a lot as well, and it's the kind of blank page syndrome, where you're like, well, you know, I could do anything I want to do, you know. And so what you end up doing is imposing limitations on yourself. Like, today I'm only going to do music in this tempo range and with these 3 instruments, you know what I mean? And you start to make rules for yourself, and it gamifies the composition process as well, which is really fun. But I guess when you're doing music for picture or music for a video game, it's like, all Cave games have quite a, well, I mean, I guess all of Namiki's soundtracks have quite a specific aesthetic, and they only vary like a certain percentage, you know what I mean? And in this case, it's like, okay, we've got like witches and bats and stuff, so it's got to be a little bit more gothic in terms of the instrumentation.
Yeah.
So I guess that cuts out a lot of, you know, options.
Right, like the
away.
Chinese Chinese flutes and stuff that we get later on. Yeah,
no flutes.
No flutes today.
Yeah.
I think he does a great job, though, with this OST of marrying all the different elements together.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think it's really solid. I would be more inclined to listen to this away from the game than say the chiptune music. I find sometimes I find the chiptune music, because it has quite a limited frequency range, you kind of, I don't know, it gets a little tiring on the ear after a while for me. But I mean, I realise that that's not necessarily a popular opinion, and
we're here.
Will be upset.
We're here to talk. Here to talk real talk here. I mean, look at the man. He's got 5 guitars behind him. He doesn't need to listen to a Game Boy. So, yes,
I love it in short bursts, but I couldn't listen to a whole album of it.
It would be kind of funny to do a little experiment, because I think one reason why chiptunes work so well is because the limited audio really complements the limited visuals of sprite art. Like, you look at the sprite art and you feel like, the audio needs to have these types of impositions as well. It would be kind of funny if, like, let's say a new 3D, big game comes out, Doom External 2020 Hyper Climax,
chiptunes,
and they have chiptunes in it. Like, what would people react to? Well, they're like, what the hell?
I think you've really hit on something pretty key there, because I haven't been able to put my finger on it quite as succinctly, but there is kind of like a cognitive dissonance, isn't there? With when you're playing like a game with pixel art. However, even in the late 2000s, and you have this like full-on rock music, what I mean? With, like, it's like, okay. I mean, I like it. It's working for me, but something is just kind of off,
Yes, and we're gonna definitely get to that here in some of these later ones. So what would you rank? Do you think Deathsmiles? I feel like I'm comfortable with this position because I think it's a strong OST, but I definitely wouldn't put it higher than about 20 or so. So I think it's a strong position for Deathsmiles.
I'll go with you on that. I mean, for me, I would say it's probably top 10, but
the goth stuff.
But this is exactly. Yeah, exactly. Okay. I'm all about that. But this is your channel. I'm a guest here. So
no, I didn't choose this. Don't blame me. It's the fans. They voted for this. Blame them. I'm going to be quite displeased with some of these placements as we go. But so I give my opinion. I'm solid with a 20. Your opinion? You're putting it, you're the pro here.
I'm top 10. I'm top 10.
Okay.
It's just an opinion, Mark.
Well, it's a professional opinion. So it's definitive. Okay, up next. Now I'm very excited to talk about this one. Einhander. I can't speak German. Can you speak German? Do you know how to pronounce that correctly?
Absolutely not. I think you're probably quite close.
Einhander. I sound Japanese. I can't say it.
You got it. Easy now. Careful. I absolutely love this.
Yes.
Again, I'm really not that familiar with the game, to be honest. I tend to gravitate more towards
this
like
might blow your mind
scrollers.
a little bit. This might blow your mind a little bit. Einhander is the one and only shmup made by Squaresoft. So it is a Squaresoft game. So that might explain why it has such an amazing OST, because it's a Squaresoft game. For me, I'm gonna give a little just lead into my thoughts on Einhander. I love this OST. I love this era of shmup OSTs. I'm a big sucker for it. The PS1 era, moody, ambient, but with a lot of like driving and bass. I'm a big fan of this OST. I think it's honestly too low on the list. So what are your thoughts on Einhander? And I'll give some more, and we'll get into track selections.
Could you put it on at like 625? I think was the kind of typical. When you said earlier that shmups and RPGs are like have the best video game OSTs, I mean Square obviously are the masters of RPG soundtracks, and there just seems to be so much care and attention put into the music. Like there's over an hour of music on this soundtrack. And it's
how do you know how long the game is? It's like
I know, right?
So for example,
probably twice as much music.
One of my favorite shmups of all time that I talk about on the channel all the time, it's a meme at this point, is Dodonpachi. And that game is about 30 minutes, and it's got like 5 songs. So you hear the same songs over and over again. I like the songs, but they needed some more. But Einhander, it's Square, so they're like, no, we're not repeating jack. You're getting a whole, everything's gonna be this OST. So it's really impressive how strong this OST is for me.
And again, I think this is probably, I know that the PlayStation 1 had like a synthesizer chip in it, but there's absolutely no way, in my opinion, that they're using it for this music. This sounds like a properly, like, fully fledged studio recording, streamed from the CD probably, given that it was the PSX. But the composer, Kenichiro Fukui, he had, do you know about the band, Black Mages?
No.
You got to look this up. They used to, I don't know if they still do, but they used to tour and everything. It was him and, you know, Uematsu, the Final Fantasy composer, like the most famous Final Fantasy composer. They actually took this to the stage, and like, I think Uematsu was like the organ player. I don't know what Fukui played, but the Black Mages is a pretty damn cool name for a band as well.
Definitely. So it's like, isn't that like a Final Fantasy character or something? It
is, yeah. It's like one of the classes.
Yeah.
I think Vivi is kind of the most famous one from Final Fantasy 9. But yeah, no, I absolutely adore this. All of the cues are really short though. The tracks are all like under 2 minutes long.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with the game, surprisingly. I'm gonna cover it at some point here, but maybe that might be because it might have short stages. So like the stages might be shorter. So
yeah,
they're like,
possibly.
Or maybe they're crazy and they're like, okay, we're gonna, instead of giving you or 1 minute and 50 seconds, you know, we're gonna give you, before it loops, we're gonna give you like 2 minutes before it loops or something.
Yeah, it could be. But yeah, it's an incredibly varied soundtrack, and definitely a composer who has a really broad palette arrangement wise. It works so well with the game as well. Like I said, I don't really know the game that well, but I've been watching videos, and like the aesthetic of the design and the music are just the perfect complement.
So I was talking earlier about like the connection between the chiptunes and the sprite art. I feel like again on the PS1, this era, I'm a big fan of PS1 era 3D graphics. It was like razor sharp, graphics. Everyone wants to. In remasters, they just want to take a sander and just sand them down.
Oh, the jaggies.
I hate that. Yeah, I hate that. but I feel like this music is also very fitting for that aesthetic style because it's like moody and dark, but then it has this sort of like epic feel to it. I can't exactly describe it, but you get a lot of like, basically you get a lot of like driving drums and bass, and then these big sort of like, it gives this feeling of space. Three-dimensional space, you know?
Yeah, it is. It is. I guess that's what good music does. It kind of transports you into a space, and
yes,
you notice that a lot when you're watching movies, and you try and imagine like what does this feel like without the music, and you're just like, God, it's kind of dead.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Music can really bring visuals to life. And,
imagine Harry Potter without that music, man.
I know. You just notice how bad the CGI is all the time. So, can you put it to 1533?
Yes.
I thought this was a nice. Break to the sort of high energy rhythm stuff. It's a much more atmospheric piece. I love see those sort of pitch sweeps. I love all that stuff. The sort of drifting pads and sort of high res.
And you're saying they'd have to do some studio for this stuff. They're not pulling that off on a PS1 sound chip.
Yeah, these are like big synthesizers that cost thousands of dollars, you know. This isn't like a tiny OPM FM synth, you know, that sort of thing. And it sounds like it, you know, it's so lush sounding, lots of expensive reverbs, and it's gorgeous.
So that was something I wanted to ask you, and you seem to know. So with video game music, like we're here listening this era, this is not like programmed MIDI crap. They're like actually recording legit instruments of some type.
I still think it's probably been programmed and sequenced in MIDI.
Okay.
Of all of the music that I listened to in this list, there's only a few instances where I could identify this is definitely a live guitar or a live bass.
That's what I was gonna ask. So that's
the rest
still
of the time it's all like super quantized, you know, but using like a proper, you know, DAW, digital audio workstation like Cubase or Logic or whatever. It wouldn't be, well, it might be Logic back in the day, but probably Cubase or Notator Logic for some of the bigger ones in the 2000s. But I don't know what software they were using in the 90s. This was 97, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah,
I assume it's like a
almost
giant ass computer. That's my assumption.
Giant, like 2 rooms. No, I don't know.
Like, have you ever seen the making of Ghost in the Shell? Like, I think you can see it on YouTube. It shows them like working on the computers and stuff, and it's like just this giant,
the
giant
sort of big
hardware.
mainframe computers.
Yeah. I don't know if it's quite
like
mainframe size, but it's they're huge. It's
take like
awesome.
a day to render a frame.
I feel like the sad thing is, as technology has progressed, like, yes, it's more efficient and awesome, but it's like less aesthetic as it once was.
Absolutely.
Like, there's something really aesthetic about old school giant ass computers and giant CRTs that feels very futuristic and matrixy.
I also wonder though, and I totally agree with you by the way, but I also wonder how much that has to do with nostalgia for people like us.
I don't know.
Because you talk about the PlayStation, and like for me, I think that the PlayStation aesthetic, and you're not going to like this, is quite it's quite ugly. It's like I find it hard to look at how grainy and.
But this is interesting discussion, because for me, like, what is ugly and what isn't ugly, I have probably a different sense than a lot of people. Like, for example, they recently showed the Super Mario RPG remake, and people are having their reactions. Yeah. I personally find like Pixar, round, that kind of like Pixar-y looking stuff that Nintendo are doing now, I personally find that makes my eyes bleed. I hate shit like that.
Did you not like the Mario movie then?
No, not at all. I'm like, ugh. Like, I hate that aesthetic. I hate it so much. And I like shit that's like grimy and nasty and like jagged and like, for example, people will look at like Sin and Punishment on the N64 with some of its textures
it's hard
and stuff.
For me, man.
And they'll
it's
be
hard.
like, and I love that aesthetic. I love it to be sharp and kind of like I don't know, something about it.
That sounds like a contradiction though. You're saying like grimy and sharp.
Well, it's both at once. That's what makes it that's what makes the aesthetic work. Is it has like really sharp like shapes, but then the textures are like grainy and lo-fi. You get both at once. That's what makes the aesthetic work.
I really like really crisp, colorful pixel art. That's kind of my jam. But again, that's probably because I grew up in the 80s. You know what I mean? And that to me, it's like when you nailed that. Like my main sort of computer in the 80s was like a ZX Spectrum. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
And it was this horrible little rubber keyed thing, and the graphics sort of had to be monochrome for the most part, like a single color background and then like a black or a white sprite on top of it, because of the way that it was kind of rasterized or whatever. There was always this color bleed where like different colored sprites would sort of clip each other in a really horrible way. So they were just like, to hell with it, that's the limitations of the thing. So we'll just make quite a high resolution monochrome thing, and it worked. But whenever you got to the arcade and it was like full color, big sprites, and I was like, oh, this is just perfection.
So I love super detailed sprite art, like Neo Geo, Metal Slug. I love that stuff.
Yeah, man.
I'm talking
that
more like the
pinnacle.
3D. Like, I like my 3D stuff to be nice and sharp, rather than this round Pixar thing that everyone
Did you like
now.
Devil Daggers?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Now you get
That's
it.
That's a beautiful looking game.
I love that. And Hyper Demon? Yes.
Hyper Demon gives me a headache.
It's not enough for me.
I'm
one of those. I like really maximum visuals. So I see Hyper Demon. I'm like, this guy gets it. This guy knows how to do it.
I couldn't figure out how to play that game. Like it just seems completely impenetrable to me. I will go back to it.
Play Devil Daggers first, and it'll really help.
I've played that lots. But
okay,
there's so
then,
many more mechanics.
Play the tutorial of Hyper Demon. Were you playing the tutorial, sir? Did you just jump in without playing the tutorial?
I played the tutorial for years.
Of Hyper Demon?
No, sorry, of Devil Daggers.
Yeah, Hyper Demon, you have to play the tutorial. You literally have to, because the game is so complicated without it.
Yeah, it is. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about, but it does look amazing, so yeah.
So the OST, I think, really fits the visuals. That kind of, like, it invokes 3D to me. It invokes depth and scope.
Yeah.
That I don't think it's something like a chiptune. Oh, maybe a chiptune soundtrack could do it, but I think it'd be a little harder.
So we need to talk about the boss theme.
Yes.
Timestamp, I think, is 54:25. Here we go. This is see those stabs?
Yes.
Those are I don't know if you know, those are called orchestral hits, and they came from like an old very early sampler called the Fairlight. You can hear it all over like sort of Trevor Horn's production in the 1980s, but it's like the sound of a whole orchestra playing a note at once.
Yes.
And when you put that on a keyboard, it sounds absolutely insane like that.
Yeah, it reminds me of Mortal Kombat.
Is there orchestral hits in Mortal Kombat? There probably is.
In that soundtrack, yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So this takes a total left turn at the lights in about 55:38 in about 10-20 seconds.
Yeah.
Where it starts. There's a rap. Where did that come from?
Is that a rap?
Do you remember
is that
this?
like British talk, or is it like an actual like someone is rhyming over the soundtrack?
In 10 seconds, you will know.
It's the 90s.
It's an action.
Raps were everywhere, man.
Here we go.
Oh yeah, baby. Oh, you've never listened to like Papa Roach?
Oh yeah, I guess like new metal they were doing that.
Yeah,
kind of,
this is like new metal mode. Yeah, we go into new metal mode for a second.
I suppose, yeah, late 90s that would be about right.
Yep. Oh, I listened to this type of music when I was in middle school.
For fun.
All day, every day.
Not as some kind of torture.
Oh no. I was an American teenager. I loved new metal, man.
I know.
I loved Disturbed and Papa Roach and and then all my posh friends. I'm trying to speak British talk. They're like, yeah, man, this is trash. My cousin, who's a total hipster, he's like, this is garbage. I love, but you know the one that made it through that now people respect is Linkin Park. Like if you listen to Linkin Park back in the day, that was like listening to Disturbed. People are like, Linkin Park's gross, but now it's cool. So who knows? Maybe this rap section in 10 years from now, people will be like, this is forward thinking and amazing.
Does this earn it a few more places higher in the leaderboard than?
Damn right. New metal rap just bonus points for me.
I don't know much about Linkin Park and their music, but it feels a bit less kind of toxic alpha male than, for example, what's their name? Roll. Fred Durst. What's his band? Limp Bizkit.
Limp Bizkit.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
I can't.
So I don't think Linkin Park was having giant riots in their concerts.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
I think they were probably a bit. They're probably.
They had
nicer
a bit of an
people,
emo. I would say like Linkin Park had a bit of an emo edge to them.
Yeah,
for sure.
There was more atmosphere in their music as well. Like I don't know. I'm not a Linkin.
The guy was a good singer too. The Linkin Park guy was a good singer. That helped.
Yeah, that's true. No, I think they were good at what they did. It's not really for me, but they a lot of people still love it, like you say.
Oh, it's just Gen Z, I think, love Linkin Park. Like it's like.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's like Nirvana to them. Like Linkin Park's. I love Linkin Park too. So I was just saying, some of these new metal bands are getting more respect these days.
It's coming around, man.
It's coming
back around.
It'll hit the British Isle in a few years now, and you'll be doing new metal versions of Chvrches albums. I am sure.
Oh goodness me.
You should go to your next band meeting and say that's the direction. We're going new metal.
Guys, we've got it. Chiptune meets new metal.
Just give them the Einhander soundtrack and be like, this is it. This is what we're doing.
Lauren will be like, I'm leaving the band. It's over.
Well, she might dig it. You never know. Okay.
She's an emo girl.
Maybe emo kids might like it eventually. So I am gonna put Einhander very high. Yes, I think it should be much higher on this list because I think that should
be top 5.
Yes, I love this era. I love how well done the OST is in terms of like having all these different elements going on all at once, and I love the vibe. It's more driving. Yes, big fan. I'm not a good speaker about music composition, but I'm a big fan of this one.
I think something that you picked up on is about the space around the arrangement. You know what I mean? It's not like absolutely crammed full with every 16th note playing some, the chugging guitars. The chugging guitars are there, the pulsing bass is there, the soaring leads are there, but there's definitely texture and variety and space in the mix, which is something that's quite a relief when you're having to compete with all the explosions and laser fire.
Yes.
And
that is something I'm curious about if we'll see a trend of this. Do you think some of the more sophisticated composers might leave like areas in their arrangement
100%.
open for sound effects.
100%.
Like, okay, I know the Hertz sound of the shot, an explosion, so we're gonna leave this area open in the mix. That way, it doesn't overlap.
100%.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess that raises a question about the nature of the development as well, because like, you know, is the music the last thing that goes on, or do they build the sound effects around
or
the
first?
Music? Or
I do know,
you know what I mean?
For some shmups, it's literally the first thing. Like
Really?
Sorcerer Striker. It's funny, Sorcerer Striker, I'm pretty sure the story goes, the dude made the OST and was like, bros. And they're like, okay, let's make a game around the OST. And so it has this like sort of futuristic, but yet, what's that called? Steampunk. It's like kind of this fantasy steampunk. And they did it based off the soundtrack. Yeah. I feel like I would assume that the soundtracks are actually a little bit earlier than the stages and stuff, I would say.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
In that case, maybe it's the other way around. Maybe they designed the effects around the music. I don't know. But I think regardless of which...
I would think the sound effects go after the music. That would be my guess.
But I think regardless of which order it happens, it's probably still the mark of a good composer that leaves space in the music for something that's going to be so audio dense when it's the finished product.
So we both agree Einhander should be higher on the list. We both think this is a very strong OST. Square delivering as usual.
And a great boss music with new metal rap. What's not to love about this?
Yes. Bonus points for me. Okay, number 18, Soulja Blade. So this is a PC Engine game, I know that. So what are your thoughts on Soulja Blade? You take the lead on this one.
I have to say, I didn't find it to be one of my favorites in the list. I don't know if it's to do with the way that they use the chip in the PC Engine. It just felt like a bit like, I think that the bitrate. This is a technical point. It's like sort of 5-bit PCM samples, so it can sound really, really thin and small. You know, talking compositionally and how it works with the game, I think it's good. It's fine. It's quite I hate to say it, generic in my opinion, compared to some of the other soundtracks that we're talking about. But it's not helped by how limited the PC Engine sound chip is. I think it's just, you know, it's that kind of standard sort of like 80s metal prog rock.
We're squirreling.
Galloping drums and
a
bit squirrely. It's fine, but it's not my favorite.
Hot take alert. I feel like there's going to be a few shmups as we come on this list that benefit a little bit more from popularity than I think. The soundtrack is just that amazing. And I think
the popularity of the game?
The popularity of the game and the system. Because there is a deep love among shmup fans for the PC Engine. And there's a deep love for Soulja Blade, the game. And so I feel like there is a section of the shmup player base, and I love you guys because I know you guys voted for this, don't get mad at me, that they mostly focus on this era of shmups. They mostly focus on PC Engine shmups and like 16-bit shmups and stuff. So they're probably not actually comparing it to maybe some of the later soundtracks on this list. And so that maybe within that sort of framework of PC Engine shmup OSTs, I could see it being a strong entry in that sort of band of games. But if you expand it out to the entire genre, I just don't think it should be in the top 20. I wouldn't put it in the top 20. And there's other games like Under Defeat that I would definitely replace it, or Border Down, that I think should be in its place. I agree with your thoughts on it. Like, it sounds good. It's not like an OST that's bad or anything, but I feel like it's like if you played another PC Engine shmup OST and then this OST next to each other and you kind of blind Pepsi challenged it, I'm not sure I'd be able to pick out which was which, I think.
Right. Yeah, I'd agree with that. There isn't enough to make it really stand out.
And
you know what I mean?
The tracks do tend to sound quite a bit. Okay, so 14. So you get a little bit different leads and stuff.
Yeah, that's the square wave lead. See that sort of, and this is more like a kind of, I think it's like a modulated sawtooth, but that sound that you pointed out, that kind of hollow, soft sounding one, is like a square wave, in terms of the waveform that they use.
But you notice it's got a really similar chugging rhythm guitar section.
Yeah,
like almost all the songs have that same sound to it.
1615, there's a track that I thought was a little bit more atmospheric and creative.
Oh yeah. See, I like this type of stuff.
It's that kind of weird sawtooth buzzing bass.
I like that.
And that's another square wave lead.
Yeah, I love these types of leads because I feel like they stand out a little bit better from the background. You know,
it gives your ear a break as well from the constant onslaught of, you know.
Yes.
Those bell sounds, that's kind of like that sort of metallic thing. Don't really hear that very often.
And this is all, you would know this. So this is PC Engine. So this is all on the console hardware, right? We're not talking.
It is, yeah.
There's no sort of CD streaming going on here.
No, yeah, this is all real-time in-game in-hardware sequencing. I think, if I'm correct, that the sound chip here uses a thing called wavetable synthesis. So, like, most forms of synthesis have like basic waveforms like sine wave, square wave, sawtooth wave, and FM is different because you can modulate those simple waveforms to create more complex ones, and so you have that very distinctive FM sound. But wavetable synthesis is different again because what you actually have is like a sound wave, so you can have like any kind of waveform, just like a short single period waveform, and it can be as complex as you like, and that has a really distinctive sound as well. And that's what you're hearing in this game is like wavetable synthesis.
That's awesome. See, I love you're able to explain that kind of stuff because I had no idea how any of that worked. But it sounds like there's a lot more to the chiptune music than probably people realize.
Oh, definitely, yeah. It truly is an art form, and there's people who are way more knowledgeable about it than me, who still make that music, you know.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite chiptune music guys out there, I think he's a fellow Brit, is Fear of Dark. If you ever heard of him.
I have heard of him, yeah.
I like his stuff because it has like a funky, bouncy feel to it that I really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than being chugga 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 chugga, you know, like most chiptune music. Yeah.
It's like it's such a relief when you change it up.
Yeah, and he uses a lot of those square leads, I think is what you call them. Like he uses a lot of those.
What do you think of the boss music at 27:28?
Let's get there.
Gotta talk about boss music. Here we go.
I like it. It doesn't really stand out to me a whole ton, though.
Same, yeah. It's not the best boss music we've had so far.
No. You know, it's a little, again, it feels a little on the generic side, I guess.
I agree. So what we're saying is, this is probably in a good place in the poll at number 18.
I would actually executive order remove it from the list.
I wouldn't argue with that.
And put Under Defeat or something in its place.
It's not my favorite.
Yeah. But the fans, they voted. It's on the list. It's 18.
It's their poll.
It's their poll. Okay.
We should get someone on to defend it.
Oh, just read the comments, my brother, because the PC Engine fans love this one. So yeah, I don't fear this game not getting defended. All right.
Fair enough.
Number 17, G-Darius. We have entered Darius Zone. Are you familiar with the Darius series?
Hell yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a theory that British people love Darius. It speaks to their heart. It speaks.
Is that
because every Darius fan is British? I don't know what it is, but every Brit I talk to about shmups, they're like, Darius, man. They just love Darius. It's just an observation I've made. So, I'm assuming the fish, there's something about it.
What you're saying is we live on an island, therefore we love fish.
I love to trash talk as much as possible, British people. Though the British fans are also like my second biggest demographic, so I'm just teasing you guys. I love you guys.
So this guy, is it Zuntata? Is that how you pronounce it? The composer of the Darius series? Mm-hmm. Absolute legend.
Yes. I mean, so the funny thing about Darius is like you could not have found a better dude to make music for that game. because Darius is like one of the weirdest, trippiest, yet iconic shmup series out there. And 100%. That is exactly how the soundtrack is. Like you'll be listening along, and all of a sudden there's like crazy vocal stuff, and like I'm listening now. Like, you get like the opera going and stuff. It's so iconic. I love the Darius soundtrack. Again, it's one of those soundtracks where I can't really put it on as far as like background music for my videos because it's not an easy listen. Because it's way too present. Like, for example, you'll be listening and all of a sudden I'm talking, all of a sudden you hear ah in the background.
Well, I mean, taken in isolation, like if you take, some of the drums out and the more sort of conventional video game music elements, you're basically listening to like avant-garde music.
Yes.
It's so out there. But like you say, maybe not as a standalone listen, but in tandem with the game, it's perfect. You can't imagine a more atmospheric, a more evocative, a more challenging soundtrack. And the thing with the Darius games in the arcade is like they took so much sort of care and attention to not just like the screen ratio and how it was presented, but they would have like subwoofers under your butt.
Yeah.
It was like the full sonic and visual wraparound experience.
And actually, until I went to Spain, I had never played on a cabinet with subs before, with subwoofers on it. That is incredible. Like, it makes a massive difference when you're playing a shmup with a subwoofer. And the reason why is not only do you get pump and bass and stuff, especially Mushi, it was Mushi with the sub, but also like the explosions and sound effects are like extra crunchy because like you can like feel them. Yes.
Oh yeah.
So I can imagine this OST with a subwoofer being awesome.
Also, you should get like a subwoofer for playing games at home.
Oh, I
can't. Just like get it built into your seat.
My neighbors would shoot me.
Do you remember?
I'd get arrested.
Do you remember that game Rez? You know Rez?
Yes.
That came with like a vibration pack in Japan where you would like put it down your pants and it would actually vibrate your.
Of course, that was a Dreamcast game. They were trying all kinds of stuff on the Dreamcast. Sega.
I mean, I never tried it, but I'm sure it was amazing.
Sega. We're on another level during that time. As far as creative ideas, they're very creative. That's awesome. So this is a PS1 game, by the way. G-Darius is PS1 era.
But it was originally arcade, right?
Yes. I just mean
and
like
the PS1 port.
It's got kind of like some 3D graphics going on and stuff.
Yeah. You love that.
I do. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of G-Darius. But it's not my favorite Darius. My favorite Darius is Darius Gaiden. But then G-Darius is my second favorite.
Gameplay-wise or music-wise?
Gameplay-wise.
Okay. Yeah.
Music-wise, I'm not sure. It's tough to say which one I like better. I feel like you have to really sit down too to really rank them because Darius soundtracks are so out there. You have to be.
Yeah.
You have to kind of listen to the whole thing.
It's a tough listen, man.
Because both soundtracks have the crazy opera girl, so I mean, you got to choose which one uses her better.
I think that's the kind of like signature, definitely. Audio cue of the series, isn't it?
Yeah,
as much as the fish is for the boss design and the enemy design. Can you put it to like 4 minutes 20?
Mm-hmm.
This is one of my favorite. Or like any, or just that's
we are
fine,
427.
I feel like this was one of my favorite tracks on this soundtrack because it is absolutely. Oh, is it just coming up?
Yeah, that hit is very Darius too. Whenever you hear that hit, it's like, oh, it's a Darius game.
I love all the tom stuff.
Yeah,
it's like
it gives it a real Japanese feel too. Whenever I hear those types of drums, I'm like, oh yeah, baby.
What? I've been trying to put my finger on what that actually is because I've been getting that as well. Like, because when you think about the soundtracks for Akira and Ghost in the Shell and stuff like that, there's an aesthetic, and I think it comes from like early samplers, and around that time as well, like bands like Depeche Mode were doing experiments with samplers and sort of like hitting bits of metal and dropping balls on pipes and having them roll down and like pitching them down and up, and everything has this kind of really cold metallic sort of harsh quality,
and then they have
with the
giant reverb on those toms. At least in the Akira soundtrack, it's like the reverb is a Grand Canyon. It's just like
but that's
reverb.
Also very Japanese in the sense that
I love it.
you know, they have the taiko drums, the big you know, the big drums. So I guess they're kind of harking back to that, but in an electronic way.
Next Chvrches album, we need some giant Japanese toms in there, big time.
So at 1 hour 09:11 is the final boss battle. There's so much variety on this soundtrack, it's crazy.
Yeah. Do you think part of it is because of that sort of new era of more they can play with more stuff now? They have more stuff to play with.
Could be. I think, yeah, exactly. I think you can trace the same thing in popular music as when samplers became affordable. It's like all of a sudden you can take any sound you hear in with your ears in the world and manipulate it pitch-wise, time-wise to an extent, and put loads of distortion and effects on it, and all of a sudden you've basically got an infinite instrument palette. So coming up now is I think the final boss battle. It's so doomy, and there's an amazing kick drum sound as well.
I love this. See, you gotta get that in the next album.
Yeah, I'm with you on the kick drum sound.
Yes.
Coming up.
Yeah, the change. Like, that's some Darius stuff right there, where it just suddenly shifts like out of nowhere.
But again, like the composer, the Zantata, he's not having to go for that wall to wall like 16s to make it exciting. It's just like, it's actually quite a sort of medium tempo, but all the color is coming from, you know,
all the overlap
everywhere.
With the instruments
it's
and
crazy.
stuff going on. Yeah.
I mean, this to me is, you know, Darius. There's got to be a top 5 Darius for me.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this. Now the question is, Einhander or Darius? Which is better?
How do you compare them, Mark? How do you?
I would still give the. Now I love the toms and I love G-Darius, but I would still kind of give it to Einhander in my book, just because I love the drive of that one. But Darius is still very high for me as well.
Yeah, it would be a tough one to call. I think there's something about the Einhander soundtrack that is it's just so well crafted.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really hard to argue with that.
Now we're just listening to the music. Okay. I can't even speak.
You can cut it out. It's gorgeous.
No, I was just like,
gorgeous,
I just had a moment of blankness in my head because I was just listening to the tunes. Yeah, so we both agree Darius is fantastic, and we both agree I would put it somewhere higher on the list for sure.
I would put it higher too.
Absolutely. This
maybe top 5.
It's funny that we're both such big suckers for the PS1 era ones, because I think that's a little bit unusual among shmup bands.
Right.
But we'll see. Okay, up next, MUSHA. Have you played MUSHA before?
I haven't played MUSHA. No.
So MUSHA is my favorite Genesis shmup. The Genesis is known for all, or Mega Drive for you, is known for all kinds of.
Thank you.
Yes. I'm polite. I'm considerate. I'm worldly. I know the difference between a Genesis and Mega Drive.
Here we go. No, this is a great soundtrack.
So MUSHA is, in terms of gameplay and visuals, is my favorite Genesis shmup, and I've always felt that it's kind of a lead-in to Rising. Like, this is prototype Rising stuff. Like, MUSHA, I'm not exactly sure the staff overlap, but you can see the connection between what is MUSHA and what becomes Rising later on. So, Rising also have amazing soundtracks, as we'll see as we go through here.
Yeah.
So, no surprise to me that it's so strong on the list. And what I like about it is, I've talked about before, I don't know if publicly or not, but I'm not a huge Genesis guy. I know everyone loves the freaking Genesis, and it's like, if there's a song, if it Smells Like Teen Spirit or Gangster's Paradise, let's make a Genesis version of that. But I actually prefer other consoles, sound chips, and stuff over the Genesis. And the reason for that is I feel like a lot of Genesis soundtracks, they tend to rely a little too much on the Genesis guitars and that iconic sound. What I love about MUSHA is it doesn't do that. It's got a lot going on. It's got a lot going on that sound chip. So
I think there's a reason for that. Like the games, I mean, apart from just the popularity of sort of distorted guitar and rock music, particularly in that era, is that the sound chip in the Genesis had a peculiarity about it, which I guess maybe is like, I don't know if it was like a bug or like a work, but the sound designers and composers found a workaround where you could actually overdrive the digital audio converter, and it created all these rich harmonics that you can't really get with like a standard sort of basic FM synthesizer. So what you're hearing with these distorted guitars is actually like pushing the thing into distortion on the converter.
Wow, so they're overclocking the converter or something.
Yeah, well, yeah, sort of nuking it, I guess. And that is the sort of fizzy Genesis sound that you actually don't like. But
I like. See, we're listening to the first track. I like the more like clean leads and stuff of the soundtrack a lot, though. I really like those.
But especially for like a first track.
It's not that I dislike the Genesis guitar. It's just I feel that it's overrated. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
it's overused as well.
Overused. It's like okay and everything, but I feel like it's a little overrated.
Yeah. If you want like a wild card sort of slower track, 2853.
I think a lot of shmups, they tend to save their more like epic sounding music for the end. I kind of noticed. Oh, I like this. Are we chugging?
This isn't it yet. It's coming up in 8 seconds. This is gonna fade out.
Here we go.
So this is more atmospheric.
I wonder if it's the end credits.
It might be. No, this is before the final boss battle.
Oh yeah.
But that sort of resonant sawtooth bass, like panned hard left and right when you've got the headphones on, it's like whoa.
Yeah, you get the Genesis stereo action. I remember that was like a big thing with the Genesis. It's got stereo, baby.
Yeah, totally. 16-bit stereo.
Yep.
CD quality audio. So yeah, there's a bit of variety, and it tends to be like overall as a soundtrack pretty, you know, full on kind of rock based, right?
Yes.
But there's a few nicer moments. The boss battle at 30:37 is unbelievably fast.
Went to 12:40 with the leads here. You know, it's making use of a lot more space in the mix or whatever. I'm not good at explaining it, but it's like doing a lot with like some of the leads and stuff.
Yeah, it also helps that the tempo is kind of a half speed drum beat.
Yes,
at this
I
point.
like that.
So the drums are slow and not taking up much space sonically, but the leads are like woo. Yeah, they're sort of flying.
I love that. That's what sets it apart from other Genesis soundtracks.
But boss battle 30:37, this is insane. This is bonkers. So it starts off with like a bass solo.
This is the stuff Genesis wild. Fans love. Oh, the drums. Oh yeah.
Yeah, the drummer.
This is full on. I like it. Yeah. That's a strong boss thing for sure. Yeah.
These kind of like leads, they're really reminiscent of sort of 70s prog solos.
Yeah.
It's just weird because prog rock must have been pretty big in Japan, I reckon.
Yeah.
For all these, and this as
absolutely. Big Genesis fans.
Oh, actually, Genesis the band? No, right. Genesis the console?
Genesis the... Oh,
see,
maybe we discovered
Mega Drive.
The link between them. They're listening to Genesis, they called it the Genesis.
But no, I like this. This is a solid boss battle.
Oh, I like it a lot. What I like about it, comparing it to Soldier Blaze, is it has a lot more character to it. It has like a zaniness to it and a playfulness to it. Yeah. Rather than just being like serious boss fight. There's like kind of what I imagine is like you're on a bike and then you crash and then you're just rolling down a hill. That's this music. You're just holding on to your bike as you roll down a hill.
But that's what I mean about like the best sort of boss battle music is somehow like panic inducing.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh god.
Yeah, very strong. I think this is a very strong placing for MUSHA.
Yeah, I feel like so. I'm not going to argue with that.
Yeah, I feel it deserves the spot at 16. Gives the Genesis fans their due, Mega Drive fans their due. Oh yeah, you agreed. Forget your opinion. Next. What are your final thoughts on MUSHA?
I was just going to say I think this one, Lords of Thunder, is going to be quite an interesting discussion.
Yes, we're taking notes on Lords of Thunder.
Lords of Thunder,
as I say in the video. Though this is my son's favorite video of mine. He loves the Lords of Thunder video purely because of that opening 1 minute where I'm going with the wig. And he's like, put the wig on, put the wig on.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, so let me give my opening thoughts of Lords of Thunder.
Okay, please do.
Okay, I feel like now I do like this style of hair metal stuff. You know, I can get into it for sure. But I feel like Lords of Thunder is again one of these selections on the list that really benefits from popularity and kind of the novelty of it, because there was something at the time really novel of getting like a, what would you call this, like a 70s hair metal style metal album on your freaking PC Engine or whatever. Like that was probably super cool at the time, but as time has gone on, now we just have the soundtrack left. What's funny is I don't know if there's many other shmups with this style of soundtrack. So if you're really into this style of music, this is like perfect for you. But for me, I feel like there are actually other games with like better style of this music. For example, Guilty Gear XX Accent Core, especially the Korean version, has like amazing hair butt rock metal, whatever it's called. So,
hair butt rock metal.
I don't know what the genre of this is. What's the genre of this music called?
Yeah, I would say it's probably hair metal. To me, it sounds a lot like in places like sort of Motley Crue, that kind of 80s, you know, sort of shred hair metal rock. It's sort of like you were saying though. It probably was the impact of getting sounds like this coming out of your PC Engine, even though they weren't actually being generated on the machine. They were being streamed from an optical disc.
CD mode, yeah.
It's kind of the equivalent of you know, playing, what were those early CG games on PC? Like, you know, the FMV games.
Yes.
And like Night Trap and stuff like that. It's sort of the audio equivalent of that.
I do think the soundtrack is solid. It's kind of a double-edged sword in a way, though, because it is so CD audio. Then you actually have to compare it to like actual music. Yes. So then it's like, uh-oh.
That's a really good point, actually.
Yeah, because then you have to compare it to like actually Motley Crue, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or like Dream Theater maybe, or I don't know this genre super well, but
I think Dream Theater is probably a little more in the sort of proggy, out there, like the development of the 70s prog stuff. This is, I mean, it does have proggy elements, but definitely as a kind of like sound, I would say it's closer to like the sort of mid-80s Motley Crue with a bit of sort of Iron Maiden, Yngwie Malmsteen sort of shred.
I almost wonder, in a crazy way, if it kind of suffers for not having like vocals on it.
Vocals?
Because, I mean, you're getting like a full orchestrated OST, but you're not getting the vocal.
Is there no vocals on it?
There are no vocals.
Even on the end credits track?
Let's see the end credits track.
I did notice the end credits track, so it's like 49:53. I did notice that there was real bass on this track as well, which is sort of sequenced bass for the rest of it, as far as I can tell. I could be wrong.
The bass player finally got his way after all these years. I don't think there's any vocals on this OST.
No vocals at all. Yeah, it's really crying out for some.
Exactly.
It's a proper wailing.
I think maybe that would be my biggest critique. Is like, if we're gonna go hair metal, if we're gonna go, you know, Pokemon opening theme, let's go all in. Let's get a singer in there going and all that stuff. But I do like it. I mean, I do, and it is fun when you're playing the game. But I just feel like it's 15, a little high.
Do you think it's maybe a little overrated?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. You would know this. It's like, if you're gonna go pop, you need to go like, you got to do good pop. You can't just do shitty pop. That's a nightmare. It has to be good pop. And I feel like if you're a video game and you're like, okay, we're going for like actual band music here.
Right.
It's got to be like good band music, you know?
Yeah.
It's got to go full on. And I feel like this is a little halfway in between the two.
Right.
It's not chiptunes.
I think I know what you mean. And maybe some vocal moments would have really sold it. I don't know.
Yes.
It's good though. It's fun. It's definitely really fun. I think it deserves to be in the poll, but it's not top 10 for me.
Yeah, I would have put it lower. I would have put it definitely under Einhander. That's for sure.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Einhander has been unfairly represented.
I know. but it made the list at least. There's some really great OSTs like Under Defeat. Well, let's just put Under Defeat in this game's place. Or Border Down or something. But yeah. So overall, a strong, cool, like, soundtrack, but
it's cool.
I don't think it's quite enough to be greatest of all time.
There's a novelty element to it that maybe devalues it a little bit in our opinions.
Yeah. So up next, we have a personal favorite of mine in many ways, the big dog, Radiant Silvergun, the RPG shmup, as I like to call it. And fun fact, I want to do a little fun fact. Not only is Radiant Silvergun the RPG shmup in terms of a lot of its design elements, but also the soundtrack was composed by a guy who does RPG music. He also did Final Fantasy Tactics, and he did Vagrant Story for Square. So this guy knows his stuff, and I really love this soundtrack. What are your thoughts on Radiant Silvergun?
Yeah, I love everything about this game. I used to have the arcade board of it.
Really?
I sold it years ago because, oh shit, sorry, can we just pause there? The thing's just arrived, I'll be right back. Sorry.
Sure.
Sorry. No, I'm out of breath.
Quick, do 5 push-ups. Well, hold on. Finish your story about how your tour bus broke down and you guys couldn't make it to the concert unless you sold your Radiant Silvergun PCB to pay for the tour bus repairs.
That's right. Yeah, I had to eat somehow, man. I can't even remember how much I sold it for. I think it was like maybe £200 or something, which now is crazy. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at the price of those
I'm sure
STV
it's
boards,
like $1,000 or more, if not more.
But it's just such a beautiful, colourful, original game. It's like there really isn't anything like it, or there certainly wasn't before then, eh?
Nope, I don't think the closest I think you can get to Radiant Silvergun is a game we see later, ZeroRanger. I think that's the closest you're gonna get to Silvergun.
Yeah, but would you still say that Silvergun was the dawn?
Ooh, a battle between Silvergun and ZeroRanger. Oh, that is quite tricky because they both do things differently, better than each other in different ways. So it's I would probably still lean towards Silvergun just because of its like epic scope and everything, but maybe if they make a ZeroRanger 2, I might change my mind. If the ZeroRanger devs are listening, they're fans of the channel sometimes. If you guys are listening, maybe if you make ZeroRanger 2, I'll put it over Silvergun.
Maybe. This is another weird one for me because, as we've discussed before, I kind of struggle with the polygons in the context of...
Don't even. The polygons are beautiful. Something's wrong with you. You need to go to therapy.
I think it works. I think it works better in the boss fights than it does in I feel like that sort of wireframe sword animation.
I love that. I love the wireframe sword, man. Especially you got to give it up though. This game's background work is insane. The background work in Silvergun is some of the best in the genre. I mean, it's 3D. They're going full on 3D with the backgrounds. And the crazy thing is that shmups kind of gave up on this. Even though we live in a 3D era, shmups kind of gave up on doing the 3D background stuff. And the way it does the levels and ties the transitions together so well. I love this game's graphics and backgrounds and wireframes and polygons so much. Like, for example, if you play the 360 port, I'm sure you're playing like the HD graphics version. I always flip it back to the Saturn graphics every time. Every time.
Yeah. I bought a Japanese Saturn about 15 years ago just to play this game. I love that console so much. And the controller as well. I love the Saturn controller. It feels so wobbly and precise at the same time. It just feels great in the hands, They haven't trumped it. I don't know what they did to get it so right, especially the D-pad.
Part of the reason why, if you pull open a Saturn D-pad, and I've butchered 100 of them, they actually anchor in that D-pad almost like an arcade stick. That's why it's better than other D-pads. There's when you open up a Saturn, there's a little frame and system for the D-pad to rest in, and it has parts and stuff. It has a part that goes inside and pivots. It's just way more sophisticated than a SNES D-pad in terms of design.
It's just shocking to me that that console developers haven't learned from that. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure there's like a patent on that technology, but I think about every D-pad since, and I just can't get on with them in the same way that I did with like the Genesis too. But that sort of era of Sega designed D-pads. But we're here to talk about music.
Yes, the music of the pad. If you use the D-pad, it's fantastic for the FM
symphonic
synthesis. Yeah, but let's talk about the music. When it comes to music in shmups, I'm actually a little bit less into orchestrated music typically.
Right.
Just because I always feel like it doesn't quite move you enough. But with Silvergun, it's done so well because it mixes in the orchestrated elements with more like driving drums and like driving elements. And it's my favorite orchestrated soundtrack, maybe perhaps, of all video games.
Yeah.
It just ties it together so well, where it has a sense of rhythm, even though it's orchestrated.
I would argue that's less to do with the instrumentation as it is to do with just how good the writing is.
Yeah, I can see that.
The melodies, the themes, the way that the themes are developed, and the variations on the themes throughout the whole game. It feels like you're watching like a John Williams scored Hollywood movie at times. It has that quality of writing about it, in my opinion.
I think
Other opinions are available.
Especially like when you go, because there's all these like cinematic transitions between the stages and even within the stages, and the music is always scoring that so well. And you get like motifs and harps and all kinds of crazy instruments going on. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible.
We're gonna come into 11 minutes. Okay. The song's gonna open with like this harp thing. I want you to listen to the harp, like, because it's so, like, the second you hear it, it just invokes JRPG Square. Like the instant you hear it. So it's coming up here.
Did you say he'd done some Final Fantasy stuff?
Yes, he did Vagrant Story and he did Final Fantasy Tactics.
Tactics is a brilliant game.
There it is.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's almost the same arpeggio as the main Final Fantasy theme, but like sped up.
I'm such a sucker for that harp arpeggio thing that goes.
Yeah. More harp and shmups, I think, generally.
Yes. It's also got horns too. I like the horns a lot.
Yeah, they actually sound really good for those kind of like MIDI synthesized horns. They sound quite realistic. I don't know 100% how this was made. It sounds to me like it's a much higher quality sample bank than you would find on like a small like FM
Touhou
synthesis or PCM.
You compare these horns to Touhou horns. I mean, come on.
I mean, we're going to get into that, right?
Yeah.
This is definitely a soundtrack that I could listen to in isolation.
Oh, absolutely.
And not tire of it. You know?
Yes. Like, listen to this. Very John Williams right here.
Yeah.
And then here comes the harp arpeggio. Yes.
The orchestral percussion.
Yes.
It all sounds so lush.
Yeah. How did they get that on? Because you said these are all sequenced. So how are they getting that lush sound on sequenced crap?
I think a combination of like sample banks that have like higher buffers and higher memory. So, for example, really basic sampling, you'll have like one sound. So somebody will play like a middle C on a piano or a trumpet, and then you'll stretch that across 5 to 8 keys. And so you'll start to hear the sample degrade in terms of realistic sound quality as it gets to the extreme pitch shifted ends of that sample that was originally recorded. But if you have more memory to play with in your sample banks, you can multi-sample, so you can have a separate sample for each note. And if it's really good, you can have different like velocities of samples per note, so you can have the sound of someone playing quietly, which responds to how hard you hit the key.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then you're getting into like technology that might not have been available in maybe by the late 90s you had more sophisticated sample banks. But there's also like controllers. You can sort of draw in controllers that sort of crossfade these multi-sampled velocities. So it sounds like, for example, with the brass particularly, you can start on a really quiet note and then swell up to like a full note just by drawing the controller in. And that just comes down to like great programming. Like somebody who really knows the orchestra, knows the sound of the instruments and the dynamics.
Yes.
And it's a great skill. He clearly knows what he's doing, this guy.
That's what I'm saying, because when I listen to this soundtrack, I'm not a musical expert, and I can kind of tell that it's sequenced, but it has a more natural sound to it than
exactly
what you would hear.
That's it. In a nutshell, that's it. It sounds more natural. It sounds more realistic. But yeah, it still sounds like synthesizers, but really good ones.
Yeah, I love it. So I would definitely I'd put Silvergun in my top 5 for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any final thoughts on Silvergun? Oh, the boss music. What's the boss music for this one?
Boss music. Oh shit, where is it? 1998. Boss music. 1 hour, 5 minutes, 50 seconds. This, I think it's the final boss,
baby. I love this
music is amazing because, I mean, the thing that really sells it for me is how restrained it is. Like, it's basically a choral theme with no, like, heavy rhythm. And when you see that
visuals,
big polygonal... Yeah.
The visuals white out, and you just see, like, the background, and then you come in on this.
It's so creative. Like, such a brave, creative decision.
Yeah, and the background work. The game is homing in on the background work, which a lot of shmups don't do. So you mix the music with the backgrounds. You know what this kind of reminds me of? I'm sure you've played Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. The Temple of Time. You go into the Temple of Time. Kind of reminds me of that a bit.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Great boss design as well. Like it reminds me of Rez again. Talking about Rez with that kind of. You know, when you get the sort of fully formed, like, humanoid polygon.
And it has 3D
characters.
elements where it's like a Tekken. His limbs will fly at you in 3D and you have to dodge his limbs.
And yet your ship is on the 2D plane, so it's like, it's whoa, awesome. What's going on?
And then it rotates the screen. I don't know if you've gotten that far, but it'll flip the screen as you're playing, you crazy bastards. Of course Treasure would do that.
Yeah, I think it's truly one of the greatest moments in all of shmups that I've played, at least.
The end of Silvergun, by far. I'm a huge fan of it. So, coming from Radiant Silvergun, we're going now to Rayforce. Are you familiar with Rayforce?
Yes, I love Rayforce.
Okay.
I just actually bought the Switch port that came out the other week.
Which one, buddy?
The one that you said was the one to get, of course.
Well,
I never buy anything without you recommending it, mate.
I want to make sure you're not buying the freaking Saturn Tribute one. For the love of God.
Hell no. No, it's M2 or nothing. No, it's not true. Livewire is great too, but
yeah, Livewire is strong. The Livewire port of Radiant Silvergun is good.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. I've got that.
It's basically the Xbox 360 version verbatim.
Yeah. Actually, this whole
exactly
conversation
the same as the 360 version.
The conversation we had is making me really want to play Silvergun again. So
well, you better.
It's
It's fantastic.
Nice.
Rayforce, Layer Section, Galactic Attack. I love how Rayforce started the trend. It feels like to me of a shmup having like 16 different titles because of whatever reason.
Great for marketing, right?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm sure the marketing team loves that. So Rayforce, I'm actually a bit surprised it's on this list. Not because the soundtrack isn't good, but Rayforce tends to get slept on a little bit more. So I'm wondering if maybe the recent ports of the game have reminded people of its existence. So
maybe.
Yeah, the soundtrack of Rayforce is really great and really solid. Any initial thoughts on the Rayforce OST?
One of the things I love most about this soundtrack is the sequencing of the bass lines. They're really inventive and great bass sounds as well. I'm a bass player by that's kind of my thing. I mean, I'm a guitarist too, but like bass is my kind of one true love, so
you're guitarist for passion, you're bassist for passion and
work.
Guitarist because someone needs to play the guitar.
Exactly. No, but bass, like, that was when I was really young. My mum and dad sent me to piano lessons, which I absolutely hated, and it wasn't until I was a little bit older, like 11, 12, where I got a bass guitar. I was like, no, this is my voice. This is,
Yes.
So whenever I hear somebody like put a lot of work into bass lines, I'm like, this is awesome. Because it's the foundation of, the drums and the bass are the foundation of music, of popular music.
Absolutely, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Final Girl, that bass line, I was ready to party. I love that bass line.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah.
I think this is a really solid score. There's like lots of inventiveness in terms of like shifting time signatures.
Yes.
Lots of weird, complex tonality.
I want to get your thoughts on one aspect of the OST that I think might tie into the game's level design, but I'm not good at judging this. Do you feel like the OST flows together really well? because Rayforce is a really interesting shmup in that it doesn't have stage breaks in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
The stages flow into each other. Now they are distinctive, but they just transition into each other, which I think is super cool. And so I'd imagine you don't have like the cave track 3, track 4, track 5 distinctive cutoffs. It's just like the music needs to flow into each other, which I'm sure is tricky for a shmup with looping and all that kind of stuff. So do you feel like the soundtrack does a good job of flowing from track to track pretty well?
I think it does. Yeah, I think it does generally. I think it's also varied enough, I think, to stay interesting throughout the whole game.
Yeah.
Which I'm very grateful of. Yeah, no, I do. Do you not think so?
No, I think so. I'm just not a good judge of that. I feel like I want a more impartial
yeah, no, I think it holds
opinion.
together really well and flows, but it's varied enough to be interesting throughout. Yeah.
As you play Rayforce, you kind of go on an actual journey with the levels too, where you start in space, then you come down on Earth, and then you go into some kind of crazy factory, and then you're fighting all these guys. I also feel like the music, the choice of instruments and melodies, like evolves along with the levels too. Like I'm gonna jump to the later.
That's the
29.
That's the boss. That's the final boss, I think.
But
it doesn't sound like boss music.
But doesn't it have like a more like industrial feel to it?
Yeah.
Versus
that's
the
got
earlier
to do
tracks.
with the tempo as well, eh? Just that kind of halftime.
And later in the game, it gets a little more industrial feeling with the visuals and everything.
Yeah. Like if you were listening to that in isolation, you wouldn't pick this out as a boss theme. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, how do you feel about that? I always like we just did the Silvergun boss theme. I like boss themes, especially end boss themes, that kind of subvert the usual like beep 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 type stuff.
Yeah. I wish that the cave games did that more actually. The cave games tend to be a little bit more.
DaiOuJou does, and we'll talk about that with DaiOuJou.
Yeah.
I feel like Doom in Ketsui does a little bit because it just comes in with the drums, just drumming all day. I really like that. We'll talk about when we get to Ketsui. But
We'll get to those. Is that spoilers that those games are going to be in the poll? No.
Yes, big time. No one saw that coming.
Could you look at the track at 1752? This is a really strange one. Like I really like the bass figure in this one. Oh yeah, this is it. This really fast bass figure that kind of goes throughout most of the song, I find really interesting.
Yeah, now we're getting.
The way that
you can like hear what's happening. Like, okay, now we're entering the new area. You can feel the transitions between the stages, right?
Yeah.
Because they kind of lead in.
I think it flows really nice.
Yeah.
Listen to that bass.
Yeah.
I really like this track. I've never really analysed the music in context of the game, though. I think it'll be interesting to see, like you say, how they go from the loops to the transitions. I guess it's like a DJ set where, like, a lot of electronic music will start with just like a drum loop, so that you can mix it in from the previous song.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, could be something like that. That would make sense.
I don't know how they do that either. See, that's tricky. You talked about variety. You're getting like some pianos going. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Is that a piano I'm hearing?
The bells, it's like a FM bell sound. You mean the lead?
No. There's like this slight piano sound in the background.
Just going like...
Yeah.
It is a sort of piano sound. Totally.
It's very subtle though.
The chip that's that was in the arcade board, I think has got like 32 audio channels, so it would be possible to have, like, if you were mixing from one track to another, to have it on a separate channel and just like sort of crossfade them. I think that's probably how they do it.
Yeah, I think so.
But it's good. It's a good one. I think it's a really solid entry.
Yes, I feel like Rayforce is very appropriately placed here on the list, where I wouldn't put it in the top tier, but it's a really strong OST that I wouldn't rank it higher than G-Darius or Einhander. I don't know if I'd rank it higher than Deathsmiles. That one, I'd tie it maybe with Deathsmiles, maybe.
We can agree to disagree on Deathsmiles.
I know, you love it. I love Deathsmiles too. I'm just saying. And then MUSHA, I think it's better than MUSHA's. So yeah, I think it's a good spot for Rayforce.
It's a good place. Yeah, I think it's maybe just lacks that kind of signature, standout kind of uniqueness that would make it sort of top 10 for me, you know? It's solid.
But it doesn't make you want to dance.
No shade to Rayforce.
So that is a problem.
You don't want to dance when you're playing a shmup though.
Oh, just wait till we get to these later tracks. I'm like standing, ready to dance as we play. Okay.
Now that's what you should be streaming, dude.
Yes, exactly. You kind of need a cab for that though. You kind of need a cab to play and dance at the same time.
You should get a cab.
Someday, when I get the floor space, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm really excited for the next one on the list. Speaking of games that make you want to dance, perfect transition. Mushihimesama Futari. In my notes, I wrote verbatim, it's Futari.
That's it. That's all you need to say.
That's my feeling on this game soundtrack. I love the Futari soundtrack. It is among my favorites. Let's get your initial thoughts on Futari.
Similar to your it's Futari, it's Namiki. He's the master. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But I mean, among the Cave soundtracks, I feel like Cave, like we were talking about Deathsmiles earlier. Again, I love Deathsmiles, but I think Futari just owns Deathsmiles all day in terms of OST. It's just so good. Maybe I'm a sucker for its style. Like the
it'd be interesting to compare. Yeah. To compare the first Mushi.
Yes. Both soundtracks I love. Both soundtracks
they're both great. I think this one is more epic, is more kind of almost cinematic sounding.
Yes. And I think it literally has more instruments. By metric number, I think it has more instruments. Yeah. It's got that kind of it's hard to find the words, but it's got that kind of epic fantasy thing that sometimes, especially with some of the kind of flute stuff like later on, it reminds me of like Joe Hisaichi's scores for like some of the Studio Ghibli films, yeah. I think Mushi and stuff were inspired to some degree by however you say it.
Yeah. I don't know how you say it either, so we'll go with Ghibli. I love the flute stuff. I mean that's the kind of signature of the Mushi games. Yeah. This is
one of those tracks I was talking about. You want to dance as you're playing.
Yeah.
Now imagine this with a bass too as you're playing. Oh, it's so good. Yeah,
but
it makes you want to dance.
It's that kind of East meets West thing though that's so attractive about it, because you've got this kind of like Western sounding techno, electronic techno vibe.
Yes, yeah.
Mixed with this kind of Japanese, like more traditional melody and harmony stuff.
Yes.
It's a great mix.
The guy pulls it off so well in these soundtracks, Mushi and Futari.
Yeah,
and what I think's interesting about the Futari soundtrack is it goes from like super like dense, dancey, poppy, and then it'll have these breaks where it gets kind of like surreal or like kind of like, I don't know how to describe it.
You need the breaks to give your ears a rest, because it can be so relentless. But yeah, it works so well with the game as well.
This stage is giant. This is like a 5-minute stage. Stage 5 just goes on and on and on.
Does it?
Yeah.
Check out the Bestial Boss theme, which is at the top of.
Yes.
See this? The trance
signature
or what does it for me?
Theme.
That's not that.
Oh yeah, I've heard this song so many times. Yes. I know
is that
this
hard
song
boss?
so well.
I can't remember this one. Is this a stage 1 boss? No.
I think it repeats on different bosses. Oh, I know it's on the final boss. That's for sure. The final boss goes
Are you
on
getting flashbacks?
and on.
PTSD flashbacks.
Yeah. Such a great boss, dude. The boss fights in the game are so good. I think this is a really strong boss theme. It's upbeat the entire time, but it's doing a lot of different stuff with like the lead instruments and changing them out.
I love that, those stabs though. Yeah, this is definitely up there. This should be top 5, right?
Oh, Futari, yeah. For me, the interesting battle is if it's Futari or if it's Mushi. Which one's the better soundtrack of the two? I also want to pull up stage 3.
Every time I hear that kind of synthesized flute, I think of Ocarina of Time.
But this is better than Ocarina of Time's flute.
It is.
This is the Mushi flute.
Oh, way better.
Yeah.
Mushi flute. That should be the name of your shmup band when you get it together.
And it will be just Mushi flute. You better be prepared. You're gonna get 20 minutes of Mushi flute.
I'm ready.
Yeah, I love this. A theming of this is like there's certain stages in Mushi. You know, they're all taking place in kind of a forest, but some of the stages are more foresty than others. And I feel like one of the dev notes is like, okay, to make it feel extra forest, add the flute. Like if it's ever a really foresty stage, the flute comes in. Versus like the final stage, which has kind of like this almost Chinese, Japanese, I'm not sure which one or the other sort of feel to it. Like stage 3 is just, you're in the forest, you're deep in the woods.
Yeah.
So the flute, I think, really matches that really well.
Also really like the Cry Scream, the final boss.
Yes.
With the vocal sample stuff in it. I mean, it's not quite Darius levels of opera.
Right. Which track is that? Really, I'm looking at
It's called Cry Scream. It's up the third one
there
in the list.
Oh, yeah. Is the laugh in the song?
It's absolutely insane.
Yeah. This one's good. It's interesting how muffled the guitar is.
Yeah. It doesn't have that horrible Genesis fizz that, that we were talking about.
Really nice and muffled. Almost like white noise, almost.
Yeah, no, totally. It is. It's almost like a noise burst. And then they have this violin sample. You hear that?
Yes.
But they've kind of like chopped it and like time squished it, so it sounds like this garbled, crazy robot violin.
Yeah, let's say Yo-Yo Ma would struggle to play this sample.
That's wild.
Then they bring in the extra drums.
So satisfying, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think this might be one of my favorite boss themes in the list.
It's a really good one. It's going to be so hard to choose with some of these cave final boss themes.
Yeah.
Now the question for you. I say it owns Deathsmiles, but Futari versus Deathsmiles in your book.
100% agree.
Yes. It's just
it does own Deathsmiles.
It's just too catchy. It's just too catchy and dancey. And then it's got the flutes. I mean, it's really hard to beat that.
Again, it's the way that it works, complementing the visuals and complementing the speed of the gameplay and everything. I mean, that's everything about a soundtrack, whether for a movie or for a video game. You know, there's that other element that it has to be symbiotic with. You know, and it really works for this game.
What's really important about that with shmups is, unlike other genres, the actual rhythm of the music is more important, because shmups auto scroll, so they have a fourth dimension of gameplay called time that other games don't have. So you can, like top players, like top Dodonpachi players and top cave players, will actually sequence some of the stuff they do based off of audio cues. Like there'll be certain parts where, like, oh, when you hear the guitar kick in,
you need to be over here.
Move here. Yeah. Shit. So like the actual timing of gameplay syncs up with the music. So music is super important to the genre because it helps you break up the time elements of the auto scrolling.
That is genius. I mean, I guess you would also use the background, like particular parts of the background stage. But
the problem is like, okay, like I'm telling you how to do a chain. I'm saying, okay, at this moment you're gonna move off the enemy. If I tell you, the second the kind of house thing comes in, but it's like halfway on the screen, that's when you move. It's just less clear of a like time stamp as when the guitar plays. When the guitar note comes in, move.
You're like,
yeah. And it's easier to remember that too, because it's also harder to remember the visual stuff at times.
Yeah. Reminds me like of the way that, you know, racing drivers use certain points on the track to know where their brake points are, you know what I mean?
Yes,
to hit the brakes before a corner.
Yeah, now imagine if they synced up the race to a song.
Yes!
They're like, when Final Girl gets to the chorus, that's when you brake and turn.
Yeah, but if you're talking about milliseconds and life and death, you maybe don't want to rely on the music.
yeah, maybe. Debatable. Alrighty. We are continuing the cave dominance. The cave starts to get more prevalent as the list goes on. DFK. Interesting. So for me, my immediate reaction was, over Futari? I was shocked. Because whenever you talk about cave OSTs, DFK is popular, or Resurrection, but Futari is just Futari, like I said. So I was really surprised to see it external theory, but part of me really wonders if Futari had a PC port, if it would be higher on the list. Because I almost wonder if, because more people play Resurrection, because it has a PC port, if that kind of pushed it up in the voting.
That's a really good point. I wonder why they haven't actually ported that to PC.
I have a theory, only a theory, which is that M2 did the Futari port on Xbox 360, versus Resurrection was done all internally by Cave, I believe. My guess is because M2 did the Futari port, maybe that's causing some kind of issues on Cave's end where they don't want to spend $12 to pay M2 to port it or whatever. They're outsourcing a lot of these PC ports to other studios, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Who are they going to outsource M2's port to? I'm sure M2 are not going to allow that shit. They're like, no, they're going to mess it up. So that's my theory. That's my theory. I have no idea how much M2 did the Futari port.
I think that's a solid theory. I've no idea how many hours it must take those guys like M2 to do their ports, because they clearly spend a lot of time getting it right.
Tons, way more than City Connection, I'll tell you that, because they go in there and work more directly on stuff. Fun fact about the 360 port of Futari is it has the lowest input lag of all the 360 shmups because you can turn off VSync, which is really cool. So
I think I've still got a copy of that somewhere, but I don't have a 360 anymore.
What? Why? Explain yourself.
I think I ended up getting the red ring of death about seven or eight times during the period that I had that bloody console.
Oh yeah.
I just got really annoyed with it after a while. But I mean, it's probably my favorite console ever.
You have to buy one of the later revisions,
right?
And have one that's modded with a fan mod. That's what my 360 is. I bought one that's modded, not only software-wise, but has a literal fan mod.
Hardware mod.
Hardware mod, yeah. And get the later black ones. Don't do the early white ones, because those red ring. Get the later black ones. Come on, man, you gotta get a 360. What's wrong with you?
Actually, I lie. I think I have one.
Is that a 360 right there?
It is.
There you go.
I totally forgot that.
You do have one.
This is, the ones that they brought out without the hard drive?
Yes. The arcade ones, yeah.
The arcade ones. I don't know if that's the one that I need to have. I might get rid of it. Anyway.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can put your own hard drive in there.
You can still put the discs in, so
it doesn't matter.
I can still play my Futari disc.
That one probably is the ones that break down the least. I'm pretty sure mine is an arcade one as well, but it has a custom hard drive in it.
Yeah, I'm gonna hang on to it.
Yeah, and play Futari on it, for the love of God. I just love teasing you. Alrighty, Dodonpachi Resurrection. All that lead up into Dodonpachi Ressurection. What are your thoughts on its OST?
I love the track that opens with the sort of funk bass and the orchestra hits. Like, I mean, it's just so delicious to the ears, isn't it?
It is a little bit different. It has a different vibe to it than like Deathsmiles or Futari, where it has more of a. How would you describe the genre of DFK?
It's more kind of like, definitely very definitely in that sort of electronic.
EDM type stuff.
EDM mode, but with that kind of Namiki sort of Japanese super sunny bright style, the kind of boingy bass and the heroic melodies. It goes into techno in places as well, little bits of vocoder, little bits of like full-on industrial rock.
Yep. This one is a little more mishmashy than some of the other soundtracks.
Yeah.
I've always felt that way. Like, the songs are definitely distinctive, because as I listen to them, I'm like, oh, that's stage 3, that's stage 4. I can tell the differences. But I feel like it's a little more of a mishmash of
I don't think there's as many standout tracks as there are in DaiOuJou, for example. Is the original OST your favorite? The original Dodonpachi? I know it's your favorite game.
No, my favorite DOJ, by far.
Okay, we'll get there.
Yes. The problem with the original DDP soundtrack is it's not the best. And also, there's like 4 songs or some crap. There's like barely any songs on it.
Right. So it gets pretty repetitive.
I would put in my feelings on the Cave soundtracks. I think DFK is very solid, but I don't think it's as strong as a lot of its peers. I was also very shocked that SDOJ is not here. I think I would put SDOJ over DFK slightly in terms of
soundtrack.
Overall soundtrack.
I don't know it as well, actually.
But I think it just doesn't have those really signature moments on it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just kind of that relentless 4 on the floor thing a lot of the time, which is cool, and it's great for the energy of the stages. But no, I think that's something that we keep hitting on. The things that we really love are the things with the real kind of standout, memorable tracks and memorable moments, memorable melodies, and a lot of variety. And maybe this could could be doing with being a bit more.
It is very strong,
sort of
though.
bespoke in places.
It's really solid, but I wouldn't put it this high on the list. I would put it somewhere below Silvergun, that's for sure. Okay, let me say where I definitely put it above. I'd definitely put it above Lords of Thunder. And I would kind of tie it maybe a little bit, maybe even a bit above Rayforce. It's kind of around there for me. Kind of Rayforce.
I think it's better than Rayforce.
Yeah. So a little above
but
Rayforce.
not much. Yeah. Don't
not
ask me to
Futari,
qualify that.
For sure.
No. There's a really cool moment, well, a insane moment, 42-17. It's not the final boss, I don't think. Or maybe it is the final boss.
Oh yes, the drums.
Yeah, this is wild.
The problem with this, I'm pausing. I'm so excited. I'm literally pausing the track. So my problem with this, though, is I love it, but I feel like it's kind of ripping off Ketsui a bit because this is Doom. That's how Doom starts too. It has this sick drum intro. So I feel like Namiki is kind of like, I did this in Ketsui and everyone loves it, so let's just do it again in DFK.
Yeah.
So I think it just owes a little bit too much to the Ketsui track.
Right.
But if you've never played Ketsui, it's amazing.
Listen to this vocal mashup. It's like what he did with the violin in Futari, but with vocals.
I like it.
It's so weird. Again, like total panic inducing. You must know that from playing, from actually being good at playing the game.
I've never made it this far, I'll tell you that. I've not made it to the TLB and DFK.
Listen to that. That must be like, I don't know, like 100 and maybe even 200 BPM. It's so fast.
Yeah. I've always wondered if you make the BPM fast enough, does it just get slow again in some crazy way?
In some kind of MC Escher type reality loop. Yeah, sure.
Because your ears can't handle how fast it is, so it just sounds slow to you again. 2000 BPM.
Yeah, I don't know how you make music that's that fast and that dense and be able to hear anything but noise underneath the effects of the game. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It could just be like a wash of noise with no definition, just like a mess. But listen to it on its own, you can pick out everything that's going on, and it's absolutely insane.
I wonder if they mute the sound effects though a bit, because you're just lasering probably, so you're probably not getting that explosion shot sound effects. You're probably just hearing, or whatever the laser sound effect is.
I'd need to have a look at it again.
I like it.
But no, this is good. Yeah, I think this is a standout boss track. It's maybe the most extreme one that I think I've heard.
Yes. Oh, I like the glitchy. Wasn't that like glitch hop, or was that big at this time? What's the glitch hop?
I don't know. I have no idea. That's a genre that I'm not aware of.
Oh, isn't that like an EDM genre of some type?
It could be.
Okay.
I have no idea.
I'm speaking out of my ass on this.
I'm not
pulling
an EDM
deep.
expert, dude.
I'm pulling deep. All I know about EDM is that the Electric Underground was an EDM podcast, and it was my mission to steal the title from them, and I did.
Was it?
Yes.
Yay.
Get it.
Do they not exist anymore then?
They made like 4 episodes and then quit. Of course. It's like a 4-episode podcast that just owned the name. But I got it. Gotcha.
That was like when in 2011 when we started Chvrches. There was a band in San Francisco called Chvrches, and I remember them.
And they put out like one EP with like 3 songs.
Yeah,
or
they
something.
had like a couple of EPs out or something. I mean, there might have been more, but totally different type of music as well. And I remember them messaging us being like, guys, you're gonna have to change the name. And we were like, no way are we gonna change the name.
I will see you in the algorithm, buddy. I will
Exactly,
see you
I'll
on
see you in
YouTube
court.
algorithm, baby.
And then we put the V in, so that kind of cleared it anyway. So that's good.
Is the V like an old school thing? Because I thought it was like for a while like some kind of like just cool stylized thing. And then I saw some picture of like old timey, and they had a V for a U in like this old timey picture I was looking. So is that like an old timey thing?
Exactly. Yeah, it's I guess Roman numerals as well. Instead of the U, it was the V. I guess that's why they call the W because it's like 2 V's. You know what I mean?
It's all coming together now.
We digress.
The lore of Chvrches. Okay. Oh yes, I'm so excited for the next one. Are you familiar with Eschatos? Are you familiar with this game?
Not really.
That's okay.
Not really before we started talking about
That's okay because Eschatos is a sleeper hit of the summer. It is a crazy
Is this Super
game.
Nintendo?
No. Eschatos is like I know it's on PC, and I'm sure it's on other stuff too, but it is a crazy-ass game. It, like, does a lot of pseudo 3D stuff, but you play it in 2D, but it, like, does all kinds of crazy 3D perspectives. The graphics aren't great, I'll give you that, but the gameplay is really, really good, and the soundtrack is amazing. Good job, voters. I think Eschatos definitely deserves its spot, and I'm so happy to see it got recognition, because its soundtrack is so good. Let me pull up some of these.
This is a good example, I think, of a game. Obviously, it was made in 2011, right?
Yeah. Yes, here we go. Point of no return, baby.
But it's leaning heavily on that chiptune aesthetic. Do you know what I mean? In terms of the actual like compositional and arrangement elements, it harks back to the chiptune style of writing where you only had that palette of sounds to work with.
Yeah.
It does sound better. There's better synthesizers and more full sounding, like you say. But it does feel quite retro for a 2011 game, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Like these guitars, they're kind of chugging, but they're not like rock chugging the same way as like a Genesis game does. I just really love the style of the soundtrack. I do like Under Defeat better as an OST, but I do like this styling a lot. So I'm really happy to see this game get its due. It's great. It's interesting you pointed out like the chiptune-y styling of it, because I never really figured on that until you pointed that out.
It's more to do with like an aesthetic. Like, I think there was definitely a point where people were like, where maybe the community was growing and people were harking back to like, you know, classics of the genre.
Yeah.
When they were making new games.
Absolutely. That still goes on now.
No, 100%. But I think this was maybe the sort of tipping point when it really started to be a thing.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, the 2010s? Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's when they kind of said 3D, throw that in the garbage. Except Eschatos.
Yeah.
Eschatos is like all in on the 3D.
It's absolutely
crazy.
gorgeous. I'm looking at it just now. Really crisp looking as well, eh? I love that track Unknown Pulse. It's a nice break from the rock onslaught. And again, those sort of big sweeps. So creepy sounding.
What did we land on for the boss tune for this one?
Extermination.
Okay. Oh, that's cool. Almost reminds me a little bit of like Turtles in Time or something.
Yeah, there's those orchestral hits I was talking about before as well. The bam, bada.
Yeah.
This is a great boss theme.
Yes. It also has a lead. A boss theme with a lead in it. Rather than just pure
Yeah. But it definitely has that fizzy FM Genesis sort of tonality to it overall.
Definitely. So it's like a beefed up chiptune style.
Yeah, I would say so.
That's cool.
I'd be curious to know what they used to make the music. I bet you it's like some ancient piece of like sampling gear, like the sound canvas or something.
Probably. Yeah. What's funny is that the studio that made the game, they're not a full-time shmup company. They mostly specialize in making medical equipment.
Really?
Yes. It's Japan, man. It's Japan. You know, where the guy, you work at your desk job for medical equipment 90% of the time, the other 10% of the time you're making a shmup or something.
Oh my god.
It's a medical equipment company.
Have they done anything of note since 2011?
Yes. Oh, they're still going. Yeah. They just released I think Natsuki Chronicles is their latest release, which came out a few years ago. So yeah, they're still making medical equipment and still making shmups.
Saving lives and saving the world.
Yes, exactly. Same time. I'm happy to see it on the list. Maybe my enthusiasm for it was a little bit overdone at the initial, because I probably would not still put it. I'd put it kind of in the Rayforce tier, kind of somewhere down there.
Yeah, I think it's better than Soldier Blade.
Yes.
Probably somewhere between MUSHA and Rayforce. I don't know. It's definitely in that bracket though, in my opinion too. I
think I forgot that all the big, giant, chunky guitars that I love are are in under defeat, and Eschatos has a similar vibe, but it doesn't have them in the same way.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, another Darius up next. So this is my favorite Darius game just overall as a game. Darius Gaiden.
As a game.
Yes, it's such a good game.
This was PlayStation, right? PS1?
And Saturn.
Right, yeah.
Yes. And this is the Darius game that was like, all right, enough with the whole 16 monitors things. Let's just put it on one monitor. And I think that in terms of level design, I think that was a good move.
It's an incredible thing though to see it in the arcade though, and
I've
have the
seen
two
one.
screens.
I have seen one. Yeah.
With the subwoofer and everything.
Yeah. It's like one of those things where it's really cool to see, but I think the level design of the series for those earliest, at least the early ones, isn't super strong. but the aesthetic
honestly,
is very cool.
I do kind of find them a little bit impenetrable as games sometimes, but I really enjoyed this one on the PS1. Really I think I had it.
Gaiden's really good. Also has like bomb invulnerability and stuff. Yeah, it's doing a lot of good stuff. I remember this was the first Darius game I was playing. Now as I was playing it, then I hear the lady singing. I'm like, the hell? But then
it takes you by surprise, doesn't it?
It truly did. But I loved it.
But then now you just couldn't have a Darius game without that operatic.
You've got to have the ladies. Yeah, the opera lady.
Also, I love how they managed to sort of make it sound like water, like you're underwater in places. Like if you look at 636, they've got these strings that sound like a badly encoded MP3. but they sort of conjure up this feeling of like being submerged in.
Also, the voice samples in this are great. Okay, we're coming into the track now. 6:36 now.
Yeah, here we go. Do you know what I mean? That kind of underwater.
Yeah, definitely.
So spooky.
There used to be an effect on an equalizer in one of my crappy audio software things I used as a teenager, where you could make it sound underwater. I thought it was like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
So everything had to sound underwater. Guitar underwater, drums underwater, everything's underwater.
That effect though, that sort of almost washy effect that you hear on the strings, and they use it a lot in all of the Darius soundtracks. They achieve it by using like a noise source to modulate an oscillator. So if you have like a pure sine wave, for example, you can use like a noise source, like a white noise, to actually change the shape of that sine wave, and you get to see those strings.
Yeah.
You get that sort of shaky sounding...
Right. Tremolo or whatever it's called.
Or whatever it is, yeah, it's like tremolo, but faster than your ear can perceive because it's like a noise source.
That's cool.
It's kind of a signature move of Zentata's scores, well, for Darius at least.
Yeah, he's like, how do I make the strings sound underwater? That's cool.
Yeah.
Like, why are we listening to like these strings and the singing? Like, that's not usually what you come up with in a shmup. You know, it's quite unique.
Yeah. I'm keen to hear your thoughts on the final boss music though, 2553.
Okay.
I mean, is this ever the like least boss music sounding boss music you've ever heard? Coming up.
It almost sounds like the name entry music. This is normally what you'd listen to in like a name entry.
I know.
It's a name entry.
Or like going down the shops to, you know.
Yeah.
to get your groceries.
Yeah, I could see that though, because Darius loves to play with these types of elements as far as like its presentation and styling.
Yeah.
So it's like a chill, there's something like extra chill about Darius. Even though it's a hard game, it's got a chill vibe to it. So I could see it being like, yeah, that's kind of cheesy to have like an up-tempo final boss. So we'll just have this super chilled out final boss fight. Yeah.
Yeah, again, it's that thing of like subverting your expectations. Like when you get, like we were talking about on the last boss of Silvergun, it's like you're not expecting this kind of music, elevator music for the boss, but it's one of the things that makes it stand out.
it's like off kilter too. It's like not quite right. There's something kind of weird about
Yeah.
it. It's New Jack.
Where would you,
Darius?
Would you place the? I know that you're a bigger fan of Darius Gaiden the game, but would you place the soundtrack above G-Darius?
I feel like it's more iconic than G-Darius is. So yeah. At the end of it, Darius Gaiden's soundtrack is so iconic that even though I do love the PS1 stylings of G-Darius, I would put Gaiden above it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it did the vocal thing before G-Darius did. You know, the vocal singing girl. So that's gotta. But I think this is the first one with her. Because I remember playing, I'm like, whoa, what the hell?
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
And then it was so good, it had to carry on to the other games.
But that makes sense in terms of it being like sort of digital audio. Do you know what I mean? Rather than any kind of FM synthesis. Or wavetable synthesis. So it's like you couldn't actually recreate that in earlier hardware.
Yeah. And I feel like Darius Gaiden is like the point where Darius got weird. Like Darius was kind of weird before, but you kind of were. But it was more known for having like a giant wide aspect ratio and stuff. But it's like Darius Gaiden is where the series gets weird.
Yeah.
So I think
it's a great game.
It's just so iconic. I would put it above G-Darius.
Is it the same soundtrack on the Saturn? Yeah, I guess it would be. It would be streaming from the CD, wouldn't it?
I think so. Because I haven't heard too many like different versions of it or anything.
Yeah. It's undeniably a weird classic. I think G-Darius soundtrack edges it for me though, but I do really like the OG choir opera voice.
Yes, they're very close. I think that's the name, Zentata. He's very consistent with his soundtracks, that's for sure.
Yeah. Consistently inconsistent.
Consistently
just
surprising.
Super weird. Yeah. You like that though?
Oh, next one's very interesting. Up next, ZeroRanger. Whoa, this soundtrack's massive. Forgot how massive the ZeroRanger soundtrack is. Before I give my thoughts, I want to hear your unbiased thoughts on the ZeroRanger soundtrack.
I love everything about this game, from the stage design, the sprites, the music, the system. It's just so refreshing. I love how it harks back to like the golden age of shmup music, but has its own unique voice. Like I've no idea. I've been trying to find out a bit more about how they composed the music, but to no avail thus far. But I just love it. It's like Eero Latinen, I think is the name of it, or Ibrowski as he calls himself.
Yes.
Just all the choices he made from, in terms of the instrumentation, the arrangement, it just really works with the game, and I think it's joyful. Like I love it. What do you think?
The crazy thing about ZeroRanger to me is when I first played the game, not only did the visuals remind me of Undertale, but the actual soundtrack reminded me of Undertale as well. I was like, whoa, this game is like the shmup Undertale. But as time has gone on, I actually like the ZeroRanger OST more than the Undertale OST.
It's amazing, isn't it?
What's interesting about the ZeroRanger OST is that there's something incredibly iconic about it. Like, you can hear just a few snippets of a song and just be like, oh, I know where that's from. Oh, I know where that's from. Oh, I know where that's from. But at the same time, I always felt like it's a little more unassuming than something like a Cave soundtrack. It's a little bit more like humble of a song. I don't know how exactly to describe it, but it's like it's not as big as like a Futari, but it's just so well done and so restrained. It's just really, really strongly composed. And then also on top of it, when you first listen to it, it feels like, okay, yeah, this is like some more basic but well-made stuff. And then like there's all these little instruments and stuff that come up that you're like, whoa, I don't remember those being in there, but they're in there.
Yeah.
So my favorite track
so many tracks
is the water stage. I love the end credits. This is one of my favorite end credit themes ever. Perhaps in gaming. Like every time I clear ZeroRanger, the end credits come up and I get up and I feel like I just want to do a little dance. Because they're so happy. It's like the happiest, most joyful end credits ever. But I need to find... Here it is. Refreshing. This is one of those tracks I'm talking about. where it starts real simple, real clean, but then it builds and builds all these nice little instruments as it goes.
And from the get-go, it's totally memorable.
Yes. What's going on with the leads of this? You know how this works better than I do. Like, why are these leads so iconic?
I think it's just a really well-written melody. Like, it's almost like a vocal melody. It's not like relentlessly trying to get the point across. There's like space in it, and it's also harmonized nicely, which gives it that slightly melancholy feel.
Yes, you're right. It is like a vocal melody.
Da, da, da.
Yeah. I should do a cover of the song where I make up lyrics to it.
But write words for it.
Yeah, write lyrics for it. That would be funny.
I think there's a confidence about the whole soundtrack here that that really sells it. Like, I don't know anything about the composer, but it's clear that he has like a really great knowledge of the genre of shmup OSTs, but is also trying to do something fresh and original with his own voice.
Yeah.
Because the problem with these kind of like
the ZeroRanger guys are like one of those those devs that are like kind of annoying because of how multi-talented they are. You know what I mean? They're like they're the type of guys who are like, okay, so they do great visuals, they do great gameplay, and they do great music. Great. You know, it's like they do everything super good. It's incredible.
Are you just envious of them?
Absolutely. Every day, all day. Yeah.
But I think the thing with like, and I think this is true in popular music as well, like when people are being self-consciously retro, it can be a little bit too reverential. Like,
yes,
you're just
like
copying
Greta Van Fleet and all that, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, no, do that, sure, do it authentically, yes, but also bring something modern to it, bring something of your own voice to it. And I think that's what's so great about the ZeroRanger soundtrack.
Because it does harken back to old school, but it's also like, it's not of that era. It always invokes to me like 2016 indie shmup, you know? Like it has its own vibe to it. Or whenever it came out.
It's got a modern feel to it, but also firmly rooted in the genre.
Yes, let's talk about the final boss music. Where is it?
Is this it?
I don't know. I'm gonna find it. Here it is. Oh yeah, baby. I love
Descent at last.
Yes, I love this. The little stabs. And then the piano. So good. This is the problem with doing Silvergun and then ZeroRanger, because when we get to ZeroRanger, now I want to like, now I don't know. You know, it's like such a toss-up between the two. They're so good.
I love how cheap that piano sample sounds.
Yes. Yeah. That was on the... I love it too because it reminds me of like my old Yamaha keyboard, you know?
Yeah,
the piano
it probably is.
Like.
It probably is like an old Yamaha soundtrack.
The old, you know, thrift store Yamaha keyboard.
But in terms of like historical context, there has to be a reason why you're choosing to make things sound shit like that. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I like it. I think it gives it a vibe.
Yeah.
It gives it a vibe.
There's character.
Yeah, and I think it also, again, matches the visuals better. Like, I think if it had this really lush piano, it wouldn't match the limited visuals as well.
100%.
Yeah. So it's a great... I love ZeroRanger. I think it's perfectly placed. I think that's a really good spot for it.
It's definitely top 10.
Yeah. So much to say about this game, the soundtrack. Yeah. And if you all haven't played ZeroRanger yet, definitely do, because it's a classic. Modern classics. Alrighty. Any final thoughts on ZeroRanger?
Not really. We've covered most of the points.
Alright. This next one I'm super excited to hear your thoughts on. Because we're being real here. Let's be real for a moment. This list is what shmup fans think about the best music in the genre. But if you take a step outside the shmup fandom, the clear winner chicken dinner of shmup music in terms of cultural popularity, in terms of cultural influence, in terms of overall impact, is Touhou. I mean, Touhou is massive. Most people who know what shmups are of my generation know them because of Touhou. And a lot of people don't even know Touhou's a shmup. They just like the music.
They just know the music.
They know the music. They're like, oh, it's a shmup? The Touhou music is insanely popular. Remixes up the ass, covers up the ass, careers made on it, I'm sure. For this list, we have Touhou, the Windows era, 7 through 10, because basically Touhou is so popular, but there were so many of them, it kind of actually split the vote a bit. So like if I didn't lump them all together, like one would be like somewhere and one would be the other and stuff.
What was coming out top?
But they never, well, what's funny is that it's almost deadlocked. I can't remember. They were all so close to each other. There wasn't a clear winner. And then even all combined together, they didn't beat Mushi and Ikaruga and the ones we talked about later. So this is like, you take all the Touhou games, you put them together that were voted on, and 6 through 10 specifically, and that's the combined total is 7. So it's not like they were all 7, 7, 7, 7 individually, if that makes sense. So you could either say this is I'm doing Touhou a disfavor because I'm splitting them up, but they wouldn't be this high up if I didn't. So, and I felt like
they should be
them being this high up is probably pretty representative of what people truly felt, because if I told all the Touhou fans, you all can only vote for one, then it would be probably this high. So
I had no idea that
on Touhou.
that it was the one guy who did the game and the music and the design and everything.
Yeah.
Properly an auteur.
Yep. And what are your thoughts on the Touhou music? Because there's this. Well, I don't want to color your thoughts. Go ahead.
I like how it feels really distinct from nearly all of the music that we've looked at and listened to so far. It's almost got a kind of Renaissance Baroque fantasy kind of feel about it, which in a video game context is always really appealing to me. You know, because you've got the sprites, the explosions, and the lasers. But even the motion of the Touhou games, that it really marries beautifully with the music. I think it's a great counterpart to it. And what I really like about it is that it doesn't really lean on the synthesizer aesthetic at all. You know, in terms of that kind of very electronic sound. It's all kind of orchestral, like live instrument based. It just feels so refreshing to me.
Lots of piano.
I love it.
Lots of piano.
Lots of orchestra, lots of piano.
Horns.
And it gets into the drums and stuff like that. But it's a perfect complement to the aesthetic of the game, which makes sense given that it's the same guy.
Yes. So the interesting thing about Touhou is there's this amazing video about Touhou. It's one of my favorite YouTube videos ever made, of all time. It's by this YouTuber. I don't think he actively posts anymore. Called, I think it's JT Sex Kick, and he makes this video called like Touhouism. What is Touhou? You know, it's early internet YouTubing's glory, and he describes the Touhou soundtrack as follows. It's like a mad genius composer using a bunch of shitty MIDI drums. That's like basically what he's doing. That kind of is what it is. It's like
it is
amazing compositions with like terrible instruments, but you put those two together and there's some real magic to it.
Yeah, you put those two together. Not only is there some magic to it, but it's so uniquely him. You know.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't mistake that for any other artist. I was really shocked to learn that it was the kind of SD90. Well, it was the Roland SC88 that he used for I think the first 5 or so Touhou games, and then he sort of upgraded to the Studio Canvas SD90. And you're right, it's just like a little desktop box with like 1,000 general MIDI instruments in it. And none of them are particularly great, but in the hands of somebody who really knows what they're doing, it's like you can get a lot of good stuff out of that little box. You can get them for like $300 on eBay or whatever.
Yeah, it's like just a step above me and my Yamaha keyboard, you know, with like those like samples, you know, with like the trumpets and stuff.
Yeah,
it's like just a step above
that. There's a kind of humble ornateness to the whole thing that is really appealing.
So I have a theory about Touhou, and this is kind of the perfect occasion to voice the theory, because it ties in with the music really well. Which, the other day, Boghog and I were arguing about Touhou. He's not a huge fan of it. And a lot of shmup players aren't. And a lot of shmup players, especially when you look at Cave, and you look at Silvergun, and you look at a lot of like the more high production, really polished shmups, it is kind of a little bit insane that you have all these really highly produced games, and then the clear dominant of the genre is Touhou in terms of popularity and mainstream appeal and crossover players. Like Touhou owns the rest of the genre. And my theory of this why is 2 reasons. One is the open license thing, which is genius, so people can participate in it. I think another really big appeal of Touhou, and actually why I gravitated to it initially, is it's this perfect aesthetic, which is, it's like your friend made Touhou, but he's like really smart and clever. But it's just like your dude in your dorm room made this game. Like the visuals are kind of shitty, but they're also clever. And so as someone who doesn't have a lot of artistic skills, I actually look at Touhou a lot because I'm like, well, Zun can't draw either. What does he do? Oh, look what he's doing with the effects and backgrounds. And same thing with the music. Like, he doesn't have access to all these fancy programs and things like that. And yet he's still able to come up with something really cool. I feel like that's one of the main appeals of Touhou, where it feels like if you're really clever and you're really dedicated, you can make something super cool. Even if it is kind of shitty production-wise. Like, the graphics aren't great, the music production-wise is cheap sounding, but the composition of everything is so strong. Compositionally, the graphics are really good. Compositionally, the gameplay's really good. Compositionally, the music's really good.
I guess on a musical parallel, you could liken it to like DIY music or punk music.
MGMT or something.
Everybody's like, for example, when The Clash or the Sex Pistols first came along, everybody's like, oh, those guys aren't great musicians. I can do that.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's inspiring. It's not, and that's inspiring because like, it's maybe like similar to what you were talking about with ZeroRanger. It's like, that's like obviously a very small team indie game or whatever, but it's just almost too good. It's too polished. Like, I could never do that,
Yes, exactly. The thing, too, is, like, it reminds me when I was in high school with my little tape recorder and Yamaha keyboard, like, I loved MGMT. And the reason why I loved MGMT is, like, I feel like I could kind of make some of that. You remember their first album? It's like, that music didn't seem unattainable versus a lot of other music coming out. So I feel like Touhou is like the MGMT of shmups, basically. I
like that analogy, because even though, you could probably make those sounds, very few of us could write hooks like that. You know what I mean? They're such good hooks on that first album, particularly.
I love them to this day.
Nice.
So that's my theory on Touhou. What do you think about that, in terms of the music?
I like that. I like that. I'm not that familiar with the Touhou games. Or the soundtracks, so this has kind of inspired me to want to kind of dive deeper into them because I love everything that I've heard and I think he's a brilliant composer and the games, they have such a unique feel about them, the little that I have played of them. I think I've got about 3 of them on Steam. I really enjoy them, but they've never really hooked me yet, but I think I'll probably give them some more time after this.
I feel like Touhou's a great introduction into bullet hell as well, because it's basically... It takes out the whole routing aspect of it and just teaches you how to read patterns and dodge them. Like,
right.
And that's like the story of a lot of bullet hell players. It's like, where did you get your start? Touhou. Where'd you get your start? Touhou.
Right.
Because
the fundamentals.
It teaches you like, I wouldn't even say like the fundamentals. It teaches you like the fundamentals of bullet hell, which are like reading complex patterns and dodging them. And it like takes away the fundamentals of old school stuff, which is like routing and knowing things happening before they happen. Touhou has this great appeal because there's always a chance, right? You can always kind of react to what's happening. So I think it's a fantastic series for people to learn more complex pattern recognition, and also to literally practice dodging. It's like great to help you practice dodging. Whenever after I do a Touhou quest and I play Touhou for like 20 hours, my dodging I always feel like really sharp after that.
So it's a good sort of sharpener for like a 1cc run?
Yes, for a cave and stuff,
Nice. Yeah, and also like the music it has a really, even when it gets more sort of dense and frenetic, it still has like quite a soothing feel about it.
Yes.
Which is really attractive to me.
The final boss music's always really good, at least in the Windows era.
What's your favorite of the soundtracks?
Perfect Cherry's up there for sure. For me, I really like Imperishable Night a lot. And I think the other one is Embodiment of Scarlet Devil.
Oh yeah, great title by the way.
Yeah. My overall thoughts on Touhou is that I feel like in some ways a bit overrated just because of how popular it is. But at the same time, I think like a 7 placing is... I think for the Touhou fans is like criminal. But for me, I'm happy with that. I think 7's solid.
Yeah, I think it's a solid placing in the top 10. I think that feels good. Although I have to say, out of all of the things that we've listened to so far, it's really making me want to go and dig into more of the music and more of the game.
Yeah, and then the Touhou
just because it's
remixes
so different,
are really
you know?
good. Yeah, like you can get like metal remixes of Touhou and like rock remixes of it. I enjoy those too.
I'm fine with the MIDI. I'm fine with the shit MIDI instruments. Like that's the aesthetic to me, you know.
Yeah, true.
And it goes so well with the kind of DIY visuals and sprites, and the whole thing just feels like so kind of cult and different to the shiny visuals, and you know.
Right, yeah, it definitely has that underground feel to it. Instead of the electric underground, it's the MIDI underground.
Yay! Are you good to continue, or do you want to pick this up another time?
Oh, we're powering through.
God, what time is it now? Jeez, you must be
4:30.
knackered.
Well, once you get far enough, though, it's over anyway. You know what I mean?
Break the back of it.
Once you get far enough into the night, you just roll into the next day.
Right. I'll be back at 5, okay?
I'll go eat breakfast after we're done.
Yeah, good idea.
Go to McDonald's and get a breakfast or something.
Oh, man. All right, see you shortly.
Alrighty. Up next. Yes. So, Mushihimesama. One of my favorite shmups. One of my favorite shmup soundtracks. Top 5 for me easily. So, putting it in the 6th spot, I'll accept it, voters. I'll accept it. I would put it higher, but...
Namiki did in terms of, like, developing what he started with the, you know, the flutes and the bird song and the otherworldly melodies and stuff. I think really took it to another level with Futari. I know there's going to be a lot of people who prefer the OG, but I think Futari's better. That's my hot take on it.
So we can have a healthy battle here, because I would actually side on the side of the OG Mushi, and I'm going to cite my reasons. The first reason why is, as much as I love Futari's soundtrack, it kind of has a little bit of that same thing that DFK has, where like it's got a lot going on and it can kind of feel like different soundtracks at times, like between like stage 1 and 2 and then stage 5, you know? Whereas I feel like Mushi is more cohesive while still being very varied. Like it's got, every track is distinctive, immediately evocative of the areas, fits together better than Futari. I love both of them, obviously. Both are top picks for me. But just listening back for this, for me, I just really prefer the OG more, I found. Not only because of it being more consistent, and of course, introducing the flutes and all those types of elements I love so much. But there's something really evocative about the original Mushi soundtrack, where like you get, I don't have nostalgia for Mushi because I have only played it in my adulthood, and yet it is nostalgic. Explain this to me. I've only played Mushi like 5 years or something, and I'll boot up Mushi and we get to that main screen and the music, and I feel these emotions. I feel emotions when I listen to this soundtrack. I feel the emotion to dance when I listen to Futari.
Yeah.
I feel the emotion to sit and write poetry or something when I listen to Mushi. It's just, I find it so moving, the soundtrack.
I guess that's the beauty of great art in any form, though, isn't it? It's like it evokes something that you can't put your finger on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It makes you feel something like, why? There isn't any real reason.
Like feelings of childhood and growing up. And I never played this game in my childhood. That never happened.
That's so cool.
So I don't even get it. It makes no sense.
I bet you though that maybe somewhere in your past you loved something that sounded similar, that resonates with in a way, like some anime or like I don't know,
something. Who knows? But
just
really
an idea.
feelings.
Could be off the mark.
No, I did play with bugs a lot. That's for sure. I had pet praying mantises that I raised and named.
Did you?
Oh yeah. I'm a big praying mantis guy.
Yeah. I definitely prefer the first game, though. I think that there's something about the stage design, and maybe because I played it first as well in an arcade, and it just there's something about the ramp, you know, the way that it sort of, because it's quite, in my opinion, quite a slow difficulty ramp. Like it doesn't like smack you across the face in level 1 and 2. It's like it allows you to sort of warm up and get into it before it starts throwing the really tough patterns at you.
And original Mushi might have my favorite track. And all of
let's hear it.
Here we go. I'm queuing it up right now. This is stage 4, the water stage.
Always with the water stage. What zodiac sign are you?
I'm a Taurus. Yeah, I know my zodiac signs. I'm a Taurus. Told you I was multidimensional. This song, I love this song. I love how it's, again, this isn't a song that I listen to and I want to dance. It makes me feel like I really get into the song every time I listen to it. This is a song I do listen to outside of the game all the time.
It's also in an irregular time meter. It's in 7/4. So it loops, the main bar loops at a strange place.
Really?
Yeah. So it's like 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
4,
there's
5,
something
6,
unique
7,
about
1, 2.
the rhythm of it.
Yeah.
And then the subtle drums going on in the background.
Yeah, and the bell, the chimes on either
Yes.
side. It's
Yes.
gorgeous. It is gorgeous.
You know what it kind of reminds me of a little bit that people love is like the Donkey Kong water music, you know, from Donkey Kong Country that everyone talks about.
Oh,
you know
yeah,
what I'm talking
on
about.
the Super Nintendo. Yes.
It has
That's
that
a
sort
really
of,
good point.
Yeah, but then it brings in the lead here, and then it gets really cooking. I don't know what it is about this lead, but I just feel like it has so much emotion into it. More than just, you know, like danciness. You don't dance to this music, but I don't know, it's really, really...
Yeah, good luck trying to dance to that time signature.
Yeah, modern dance, interpretive dance. Yes, I just love this track. It's probably my
That's
favorite Shmup
beautiful.
track of all time.
Which stage is this?
This is stage 4. So you're coming into the water stage. You got water skippers.
I love the sort of ethnic sounding drums as well.
Yes, I love that. I love this style of drums too. Yeah.
There's
like
something
you said.
about those choir pads though that are just so beautiful and so nostalgic.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how to put my finger on it, but this
Yeah,
is one of my
you-
favorite tracks of Shmups.
You might be swaying me on this.
I told you. And then, of course, we got to talk stage 5. So stage 4, one of my favorite tracks of all time, and then stage 5, one of my other favorite tracks ever. It starts off kind of the usual,
Yeah.
like this is kind of Futari, right? And then here we get it, the flute,
The
baby.
flute, the Mushi flute.
The Mushi flute, here it is. Its first appearance. Did I ever say in the podcast or on the channel my theory of Mushihimesama Futari and Mushihimesama?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so my theory of Mushihimesama and Mushihimesama Futari is Cave played stage 5 of Mushihimesama, which has a lot of cancels, which has a kind of a different pace and feel from the rest of the game, and they said, just turn stage 5 into a game, and that's Futari. Like, if you look at the stage design of stage 5 and Mushi, it is like Futari, basically.
Right.
Versus the rest of the game. Stage 5 is where Futari begins in terms of the way the game's programmed. Like, it's all about cancels, and
Yeah.
it has that more epic feel to it and everything.
Is it stage 1 of Futari that has that dinosaur
Yes.
T-Rex bus?
Yeah.
So weird. I much prefer the aesthetic
Yes.
in the first game.
I think it's more cohesive. I think the music is a bit more cohesive too. See, this song, isn't it great? Isn't it just fantastic?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So yeah, I'm a
But
big
also,
OG Mushi
yeah,
fan.
it's also really interesting to hear how they've extrapolated the music themes and aesthetic from the original game, as well as, like you say, stage 5.
Yeah, definitely.
It does feel like a development. It's not necessarily better, but
Well, I love Futari though. That's the thing, is like, I'm glad they went that direction with Futari because it makes the game distinctive, right? And that's like I think it's great. They're just two different games. It's really that simple. It's like, do you want an apple or do you want an orange? You know, they're two distinctive
they share a
games.
name, but yeah. Okay, you've sold me. I think I might be an OG guy now.
Yes. The OG army is getting bigger. Let's talk boss music here. I love the boss music. And then it brings in the instruments too. The lead instruments. Building up. I like the build up.
Yeah.
And then all shit goes to hell. And what's fun is like when these music cues come in, like the game gets harder. So it syncs up with the boss fight really well.
Wow. There we go. The big orchestra hits.
Then it loops back around. Yeah.
That's fun. That's really cool.
I really like this boss theme a lot.
He is the master, I think.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And I think Mushi's one of his best. One of his best, for sure. So,
Yeah.
I think 6, I'll accept it. I would put it a little higher personally, but it's still very, very strong. Placing 6. Can't be too picky at that point.
That's fine.
Any final thoughts on Mushi?
Not really. No, I think you've covered everything.
Yeah, I kind of took over that segment, sorry.
No, it's great. It's good when you feel passionately about something, you know, it's good to take the lead.
This one,
Ikaruga.
I want to get your unpoisoned thoughts on Ikaruga. So, without my priming you or influencing you in any way. So what are your unpoisoned thoughts on Ikaruga's OST?
I can't possibly speak in an unbiased way about this game, about this music, because I love the game so much. Like, I fell in love with this so much. Had the Naomi hardware behind me as well.
Nice.
Played it for years. Just like, I was never any good at it, but like I really love it. So again, a mostly orchestral score with rock and techno elements, but it has its own voice. It's very, very different to Silvergun.
Very different.
But similar in ways that it sort of develops the main theme throughout. Do you know what I mean? The variations on the main theme. No, I love the score for Ikaruga and the game and the aesthetic and everything. It's just kind of perfect.
For me, I'm a little bit more cool towards the Ikaruga OST, to be honest. And I played plenty of Ikaruga. Don't get me wrong. I played plenty of Ikaruga. But for me, one reason why, to me, is it kind of falls a little too far for me into the orchestrated. Like, for example, it just kind of, it takes its time, man. I mean, we are just taking our time with the soundtrack. It loops a lot. It's got a lot of similar passages. It doesn't feel as distinctive or immediate to me as the Silvergun OST.
Yeah.
And it doesn't
I think Silvergun's better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's well done, but I feel like it's just not nearly as strong. Like, the big bombastic themes. It's not bad or anything, but to me, it doesn't feel like it has a really unique element to it. I almost feel like you could kind of catch this with a lot of orchestrated soundtracks.
Although listening to this now, I get waves of nostalgia.
Yes. Well, I do like little drum things it's got going on there.
Yeah.
And like the horns.
Yeah, there's lots of good rhythm programming and stuff. But like, if you take, for example, Silvergun, it would be so easy to imagine that being performed with a live orchestra because there's so much depth to the writing. You know what I mean? And it's so memorable. But like this, I don't know. I don't know if I could sit through a concert of Ikaruga.
Right, exactly. Exactly. It just has a lot of repeated passages too.
It does. But it works really well with the game, you know.
The funny thing is like, again, the OSTs are kind of reflective of the games because Silvergun has a much tighter pace than Ikaruga. That's just objective. Whether or not you like Silvergun or Ikaruga better, Ikaruga is a lot more, we're kind of strolling in the park pace because of the chaining system and the way the chaining system works in that game versus Silvergun, which to me feels a little bit more like, it's got a bit more of a pace to it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sections in Ikaruga where it's like, okay, now we're spinning and flying into a tunnel. Oh, now we're, it has a lot of that going on.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
So like, listen to this passage of music. It's been the same kind of thing for a while now.
I know. It doesn't really develop in an interesting way.
Whereas like Silvergun, it's always shifting and turning and you're going from scene to scene and backgrounds are spinning and even like the background work in Ikaruga is a little bit more muted than the background work in Silvergun.
The whole color palette in Ikaruga is a lot more kind of monochrome as well, isn't it?
Yes.
With the whole black and white thing with the little hints of purple and blue.
And
Whereas Radiant Silvergun, it's just like color.
Yes. I get it's an aesthetic, and I get it like it's a choice. So determine how you feel about it. But to me, I just feel like the Ikaruga soundtrack, in comparison to the Silvergun soundtrack, I would just hard swap them. Put Silvergun in Ikaruga's place and put Ikaruga's place in Silvergun's. I think that would be a very fair way to do it for me. I'd put Ikaruga down in round 14 and put Silvergun up in 5.
Yeah, it's quite samey. There's all those, again with the orchestra hits, that seems to be a trope of the shmups genre so far in terms of what we've talked about.
Yes, man, we love
but
our
this is
orchestra
full of them. There's so many of them.
Yes.
Which is great. But like I said, I can't really speak objectively about this game because I've such a strong feeling about the music because I've such a strong feeling for the game. So
yeah,
I'm like, I just love this. But
well, what do you think is the strongest element of its music compositionally?
I mean, there are some catchy themes. But then it's hard to say whether that's just because I've played them so many times that they've sort of tattooed on my brain.
Yes.
No, but I think there is some strong melody writing objectively. But it doesn't really develop and is musically interesting in a way as Silvergun does. I would agree, I would swap them probably.
Yeah. I wonder too, like, Ikaruga is like famous for like how tiny of a game it is, file size wise. So that tiny file size must include tiny music samples.
It definitely does sound quite downsampled. Like you can hear the sort of bit crushing artifacts on the low res playback. But it's weird because the Naomi was disc based, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the Dreamcast was. I know. I have no idea about the Naomi, but
well, the Naomi is basically a Dreamcast in an arcade machine. It's the same. It's the same hardware. You've got.
And
they're
little discs too. They're not DVDs. They're CDs.
Yeah, yeah.
I know because I burned a pile of them. A pile of burned Dreamcast discs.
Me too. They were so easy to pirate those games.
Yeah. All right.
The golden days.
Yeah, Dreamcast.
Yeah. Hiroshi Iuchi also did Sin and Punishment.
Did
OST,
he really?
Which is nowhere to be seen in this poll.
Bastards.
Do you think that's an omission?
You know what? I don't know because I've played that game a million times. And I can't remember what the OST
Can't remember the music. Well, you know.
All right, hold on a sec. We're pulling.
Maybe
up
it
Google
wasn't
now.
very good.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, I like it a lot more than Ikaruga.
This is a great reaction.
I forgive them though because they probably weren't thinking along the lines of Sin and Punishment. But I do
Being
like
a
this.
shmup?
I do love the Sin and Punishment OST. Yeah.
It is a shmup though, even though it's a rail shooter, right? Or is that different?
I made this whole spreadsheet about this. Okay, so it's a shooter, and it would be under the category of a gallery shooter, just like Wild Guns. It's the same.
Yep.
It's the same genre as Wild Guns, which is a cousin to the shmup subgenre, but it is not a shmup because it does not have 8-wave free movement because you're on the ground.
Wow. Okay. Nicely done.
So yes, its exclusion makes sense because of categories. All right. Thunder Force 4, a Genesis game made its way. What about Axelay? We see no SNES representation on this list in the slightest. There's no Axelay, even though I love that soundtrack.
It's a tragedy.
And we got PC Engines, we got like Genesis games kicking ass. What are your thoughts on Thunder Force 4?
I mean, it's obviously a classic. It sounds so fizzy, FM Genesis. High energy rock. It's exactly what it needs, really. I thought it was more interesting musically than the MUSHA soundtrack.
Yeah, I think it's better as well.
Yoshida makes use of the distortion bug glitch in the sound chip hardware, like we were talking about before. Mm-hmm. Hear how fizzy that is?
Yeah.
Like the drum, but not just the fizzy guitars, but like all the drums and everything are like driven.
Yeah, I didn't notice that until you pointed that out.
It sounds brilliant, but I don't think it's on every track. You can hear like things are a lot more clean sounding.
Oh, I like this track though.
Yeah.
I like the cleaner tracks of the soundtrack.
Me too. The kind of softer sounding tracks.
Yes.
Me too.
Yeah.
The rock ones, it's almost a cliche, isn't it? It's just like, oh, here we go.
Yeah. That I feel like though, in Thunder Force 4's defense, I feel like this is the game everyone is copying when it comes to Genesis glory.
Yeah,
I mean, I hear about this OST. It is probably the #1 most mentioned shmup OST when I talk to people. I mean, it just is iconic in a lot of people's minds. So I'm not surprised to see it so high on the list. It's just funny how it just dominates the rest of the field in terms of its competitors of Genesis shmup.
Totally. There's a track around 10 minutes 24, I think it starts. And from a compositional point of view, what he does with like the changing meters, like he goes from sort of 7/4 to 6/4 to 4/4, and then a massive tempo drop. It's like all over the place. This is probably a boss battle, but I'm not 100% sure.
Here we're coming into it right now.
Up.
Oh, this is good.
It's the stage, yeah. It sounds like stage music, actually. The last one sounded like an Einhander level boss.
See, this is why I like this soundtrack more than a lot of the other Genesis soundtracks, because it is more, you're getting more stuff going on here rather than just guitar stuff.
It's not just the straight ahead.
Yeah. And you could bet this dude, by this point, has been working on this freaking sound chip for years. He probably knows it back to front at this point.
Absolutely. Which I think is the Yamaha developed sound chip that's in the Genesis.
Yeah, I love this lead. Absolutely.
But you hear how again with the weird time signature, it gives it a sort of slinky, unusual feel.
Yeah. Makes you want to makes you want to crawl around or something. You're crawling around on the floor.
There's a track at 7 minutes 16. Before we were talking about the Yamaha DX7 and the sort of FM bells and stuff, I think this is a good example of that.
Oh, yeah.
Right, see that kind of metallic bell sound?
Yeah.
That's like the DX7.
So he's only
Yamaha
getting that
DX7.
from overdriving the sound chip?
No, this is... I don't think this is overdrived. I could be wrong. But this is like a really idiosyncratic FM sounding bell sound.
It's like the suggestion of a bell, basically.
Yeah, you hear a lot of that in 80s horror movie soundtracks like Fright Night and stuff like that.
Like John Carpenter stuff?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, once he dispensed with analog synths and they thought that FM was the future, they were wrong. But you hear that all over those soundtracks. And here we are.
This is signature Thunder Force 4 stuff.
That sounds like Doom.
Yes, it does. It just needs the little hammer. It does sound like a Doom.
Yeah.
This
apparently
song,
Yoshida.
I think this song gets covered a lot too.
Apparently Yoshida did the soundtrack for the Neon Genesis Evangelion game on the PS2.
That makes sense. It is so hilarious how influential Evangelion is on shmups.
Yeah.
It is massively influential on shmup. If you're a shmup player, has to be your favorite anime because influenced the genre so heavily.
100%.
Like every shmup is like Sin and Punishment. I just mentioned Sin and Punishment. Sin and Punishment is like Evangelion, basically.
Yeah. 100%.
It even has an Ava at the end that you pilot. Sick.
I need to watch that again.
I need to cover it again on the channel.
Would you put this top 5?
Personally, I wouldn't in terms of my tastes, but I can see it in terms of its influence, in terms of its popularity, in terms of how well done it is. I could see it being top 5, yeah. But it's not in my personal listening catalog.
I think
whereas Axelay is, and Axelay got nothing.
I think its placement probably reflects what we were saying before, though, about how it was so influential on the other Genesis soundtracks, you know what I mean?
Right? Like, people look back at this soundtrack a lot.
Yeah. It's rock solid, it's great.
Yeah, it manages to do, everything a good Genesis soundtrack should do without being too repetitive. So yeah, Thunder Force 4 fans, you all better be happy. And it's also funny that it's 4th in the placement. That was not manipulated. It was just pure faith right there. Alrighty, I'll let it stand. I'll let it stand at 4. What do you think?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
We've beat up on the poor Genesis fans enough. We'll let them have this one.
I think you're just super salty because there's no SNES in there.
Yeah, that's part of it, definitely. The SNES lobby will be reaching out. Okay. Oh boy, here we go. DOJ. Now I know you like this one because didn't you bring this up in the New York Times interview?
New York Times interview? Yeah, I've got it on. It's on behind me.
I think you did. I think you did talk about DOJ in that interview.
I did, yeah. It wasn't New York Times.
Wasn't it?
So there's a games journalist that writes for the New Yorker. Yeah.
Right, the New Yorker. I'm sure mixing that up to them is criminal.
It's a big deal, man.
It's a big deal, dude.
Yeah.
It's like mixing up Universal and Disney. You don't do it, man. You don't do it.
Dude.
Okay, so DOJ. Okay, so we all know Mushi's really high for me. DOJ is extremely high for me as well. I love the game, and I love this soundtrack.
It's fantastic.
One thing that I would actually amend to this, though, is as much as I love the original, I actually like the Xbox 360 Arrange more. Is that bad to say? But the 360 range is so good. It better be included in the PS4 port, otherwise I'm having a temper tantrum. It will be though. It's M2, it will be.
What's so different about it? Is it just like different instruments that they've used?
Oh, it's like bigger. It's just big. It's awesome.
Right.
And yeah, it goes harder too. And not just in like a rocky sort of way, but like it brings in more instruments and it's just really good. Can you hear when I play stuff on YouTube?
Gosh, this is unrecognizably different to the one I'm used to hearing.
But it goes so hard. Yes! I'm gonna put this in the edit.
Are those live drums?
I don't know, but it's amazing. And it gets even harder too. It's so good. Wait till we get to the main chorus.
Wow, this is blowing my mind, by the way.
Yes! Bring in the guitar, baby. It's good, isn't it? It's really freaking good. It's like the best part of the port, by far, is the OST.
I wouldn't be surprised if this was his Black Mages band with Uematsu, like, because a lot of it sounds quite live.
Yeah. And here it comes. Yes! Doesn't that lead sound awesome?
Whew. I've just got to that bit. You're just a sucker for the kind of fluty sounds, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Big time. Especially when you mix them in with like these chunky guitars and stuff.
Oh god, this is so much better than the original.
I told you. And then the guitar, baby. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I'm absolutely loving this.
So, this is like one of my favorite Shmup OSTs ever. It's so good. So I love the original, but I actually like the arrange more. Which is quite unusual. But it's really
So, by
good.
contrast, can you play the original stage 4?
Yes. But it just doesn't go as hard. It doesn't go as crazy. Here we go. I like this one a lot too. But it just doesn't hit as hard as the arranged version, I don't think.
I'm not 100% sure if this was sequenced on the chip or if this was some kind of like low-res PCM playback, but if it was sequenced on the chip, they had such a small amount of memory. I think there's like 32 meg of RAM on board for all these instruments.
I think it has to be. I think it has to be on the chip because it plays like off the emulator. It plays off that tiny little ROM. There's
yeah, it will be. So it was the PGM system, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Poly Game Master.
Yep.
32 meg of RAM they had for instruments. Can you imagine?
just tiny baby
Yeah.
instruments. Still sounds fantastic, but
It does sound fantastic.
just a shout
Again,
out to the arrange.
it's what an expert composer can do with the limited thing. That's what we've mentioned this many times before, you know?
Let's go to my favorite track. Stage 3, baby.
Oh yeah, I love this.
My favorite track. So in the arrange, I always go back and forth between 3 and 4 as my favorites, but on the OG, it's easily stage 3. That kind of vocal
The
pads.
C level.
We're in the sky. We're in the sky on this one. Blue sky.
Is it not in the C? I thought it was the C.
Nope. You're thinking of stage 2, which has like these water ponds and stuff. We're like entering an atmosphere. I love these, whatever this music is. What is this? What is that instrument?
God only knows. It's a sampled
Dolphin.
I'm not gonna say a sitar, but it has some kind of like buzzy string overtone about it that's been sampled and stretched across a whole octave, so it sounds completely unnatural and completely
I know, but it's awesome. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I love the melody here.
And great bass line as well.
Yes, this is such a fantastic song. There was a point when I was doing the very early days of my show where I was gonna have this just be the intro song to every episode. I was like, you know how like Maximilian Dude uses the freaking whatever Marvel vs. Capcom 2 music in every video? I was like, I'm gonna do that with this song, but I'm too eclectic for that.
What I love so much about the DaiOuJou soundtrack particularly is that even though it has the elements of kind of techno rock that are so much a kind of staple of the genre, there's this kind of spaciness, this kind of psychedelic spaciness that he brings in, which just elevates it so much, in my opinion.
You were talking earlier about like the Akira soundtrack, that sort of like world music type thing they got going.
Oh, the ethnic instruments and stuff.
Yeah. It feels a little bit more like that because, like you said, it's less dense and stuff.
Yeah, and there's lots of really subtle kind of jazz pads and changes in the background that are just so expertly done, and they're not like making a big deal about being there. They're just like, oh.
Yeah. What's your favorite song OST?
I really like the Stage 2.
Yeah, Stage 2 is another fantastic one. Colorful Rainbow, yeah. What the hell is that
bass sequence
instrument?
is awesome. I think it's like some kind of flute sample that they've stretched across the keys. Like
it
not
invokes to me like some kind of crazy, like, I don't know what, like traffic alarm or something. Be careful. I imagine a plane like docking, you know, and it's like making these noises as it's docking. Like, careful, go over here.
Wow. That bass sequence is incredible though, isn't it?
Yes. The thing about DaiOuJou is it just delivers song after song. They're just all so good.
Yeah. And they never really get boring or old in your ears either.
No, because they're very
like
distinctive. They're very distinctive. They all fit the theming of the stages so well because stage 1 is like this cyberpunk broken down city. Stage 2 is like this wasteland of old buildings and water and stuff. And you get a little bit of like a water feel to it.
Yeah.
And then stage 3, you're entering the atmosphere.
The sky.
Yeah. And then stage 4 is very industrial because you're in the industrial part of the game. Yeah. It's just, they all are very reflective of the stages.
What about the final boss music?
Yes, let's talk about it.
The true last boss.
Well, let's talk about the last boss, and then let's talk about the TLB boss. That's a violin, right?
Yeah.
That violin reminds me so much of the band Godspeed for You, Black Emperor. Like they use violins like this in their music too.
They're there's like a kind of a doom-laden, doom-laden feel about it.
Yeah.
Good reference though, man.
I have their entire discography, and I ordered it all at once, and so they sent me like a thank you note. So I have a thank you note.
Did they?
From them. Yeah, they're pretty cool dudes.
I've never met them.
I don't know if they would still do that now, but like 10 years ago they did that.
They made an album recently again, didn't they? Maybe in the last couple of years. Is that right?
I think so. I haven't been keeping up with what they're up to.
I love how scratchy that violin sample is.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that isn't a violin, but that it's like, I don't know what the instrument is called, but there's this Chinese instrument that you play with a bow as well, and it's got like one string. Do you know the one? Can't remember what it's called. But it has a similar kind of timbre to
Maybe?
that. Or that could just be violin with a bad sample, I don't know.
Could be. I mean, they're doing all kinds of weird stuff on this OST.
It's fantastic though.
Who knows what's going on there? Prepare yourself for the TLB theme. Yes!
Yes!
The drums.
The full-on drum and bass.
Yeah. It's just such a great contrast from the last boss.
Is this the only time you hear this theme in the game?
Yeah, when you fight Hibachi.
Yeah.
It's a Hibachi fight.
That's not how fast the guitars are.
And the patterns are super fast too. So like the really fast music really matches the fast patterns.
I love this.
Yeah. It makes it so intense.
80s speed metal.
Yes. Kind of has like an industrial feel to me, at least for me.
Yeah. Industrial drum and bass meets thrash. Yeah, I love this. Again, it's the kind of psychedelic elements that take you by surprise.
And then it just goes Swans mode.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, great.
This is definitely God tier.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the DaiOuJou soundtrack. I definitely put it in top 5. Placing it at 3, I think that's really fair. Mm-hmm. For me, it is a real toss-up between it and the next game. Before we get to the next game, any final thoughts?
Same composer.
Same composer.
No, I'm good to move on.
Same hardware.
How many of Namiki's games are in this top 20? Have you had a count yet?
Does he do all the cave stuff?
6. I think 6.
4, 5, 6. Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're good, you're good. what are your initial thoughts on Ketsui?
Well, you go first on this one.
Okay, so the two soundtracks are siblings to each other. I feel like Ketsui and DaiOuJou are sibling games in so many ways. They're on the same hardware. They share that same development time. Very similar soundtracks, I feel like, overall, and vibe. They have a very similar vibe to each other. I would say the difference, though, with Ketsui is Ketsui has a little bit more of like a grounded feel to it versus the psychedelic feel of DaiOuJou.
Which really reflects the kind of city, the realism.
Yeah. And you're in a helicopter, so you're literally like closer to the ground. You're just a few feet off the ground compared to being in space.
Whereas DaiOuJou is more kind of sci-fi from the off, you know.
A lot of the stuff he's doing in DaiOuJou, you can see him kind of building on it here in Ketsui, like with the drums right here. Like this drum is the same crap we were listening to in the TLB, and he's like mixing it into the stage music now. How would you describe the drums? How do you describe them? Because I'm not good at describing how they are.
There's lots of different drum treatments. There's a lot of the sort of trademark sort of cave Namiki electronic stuff, but he also goes into, I think what you're referring to, the kind of drum and bass stuff.
Yes, like the
and
snare.
Kind of techno
it
metal.
has like this, like Ketsui has this snare noise. It's like.
I need to have a listen.
It's not playing right now,
Is it?
sadly.
Oh, okay.
It'll come in though.
Yeah, it's just like a snare sample that's sort of been pitched up, so it has this quite sort of cutting.
I just feel like that snare is like very distinctive to me.
Yeah, it's quite satisfying.
Yeah.
I guess that's one of the hallmarks of like drum and bass in general is like, because it was all based on the early Akai samplers, everything was pitched up into unnatural pitch ranges.
Yeah.
So you got like snares that sounded like really top-endy and really cutting.
Yes, exactly. There's like no low end at all.
Yeah.
It's just like psh, psh, psh. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This drum.
Yeah.
That's like very Ketsui. So I feel like the game has a bit more of a drive to it than DaiOuJou's OST.
Yeah.
Though I love both, and it's hard for me to choose which I like better.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the difference between the two, though.
How are we on the boss music?
Oh, okay. Let's get to the
I don't
boss.
have a timestamp on there.
I know it by heart. This is the boss.
I'll bet you do.
I like the boss theme. Again, see, it's very... The drums are kicking in this.
And that guitar sound is so grimy.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. It's not
nasty.
anything like a Genesis guitar at all.
No,
I
because
really like it.
This is sample based, but really, really low bit rate.
We're
sample.
chugging big time.
Because the Genesis is all on-chip synthesis, right?
Yeah, I never quite thought about it, how drum and bassy it is, till you pointed that out. Like breakbeats or stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Breakbeats.
It just has such a great rhythm to it.
Yeah.
And we gotta listen to Doom. But before we get to Doom, do you have a track that's a favorite of yours on this one?
I don't know it that well, to be honest.
So guess what stage is probably my favorite track? Well, there's
the
two
water
of them.
stage.
The water stage. Here we go.
And the fluty leads, yes.
I love combined with the drum though too.
Yeah.
Like you get the more like chilled out leads and then the just hammering drums.
But again, something that you brought up before is the amount of space in the mix.
Yeah.
You know? It's not like weighed down with all the chugging bass. There's like lots of room for the drums to just be...
Sorry, that was stage 2. That wasn't stage 2. It has such a great lead in.
I'm trying to figure out what that instrument is. It sounds almost like a marimba or something that's been distorted or bit crushed.
I don't know. It's some kind of magical instrument he discovered, and Namiki knows where this comes from.
With a really kind of acidy bass sequence underneath it. I mean, who puts these things together in any context out with video game music? It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, this one's a little bit more spaced out, a little bit more chill in terms of like the instruments compared to some of the other stages.
That's brilliant. I think you could pick out any one of his tracks, Namiki, and you would know it was him. You know, there's something about his signature style that's just so unique.
Okay, now we're gonna do more YouTubing homework because I talked about how awesome the Xbox range of DaiOuJou is. Well, Stage 4 Xbox 360 range of Ketsui is also amazing.
360, stage 4.
Yep. Defense line, I believe it's called. OST
Extra OST defensive line, lurking in the darkness, stage 4.
Here we go, baby.
Whew.
I love this stage. Yes. Doesn't that sound awesome?
This pisses all over Lords of Thunder, in my opinion.
Yes, exactly.
It's a hot take.
I don't think so. Not if you have ears.
Honestly, I have to thank you for introducing me to these arranged soundtracks.
Yeah, they're
I need to,
super good. Doesn't that sound awesome?
So around about the 1 minute mark where it goes into the clean guitar?
Yeah. Then we get the like symphony or whatever that is.
Yeah.
Strings, whatever they are.
Yeah, the strings. That is glorious, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can you take that into account when rating a soundtrack, like an arrange of it? I guess you can.
I think
it's
so.
the same music.
I think you can.
So we're saying Ketsui deserves its place as number 2, or do you think it's rated too highly?
For me, this one's hard because my bias levels are intense for Ketsui and DaiOuJou. So I personally would absolutely put them here, but my bias is very high. I really go back and forth which I prefer, Ketsui or DaiOuJou's OST. I probably actually prefer DaiOuJou's in the end, but it's very close. What about you? What are your thoughts?
I think my bias is probably because I love the game so much, and I've spent so much time with it.
Yes, yeah.
Just imprinted in some way that I can't escape.
It gets under your skin if you listen to enough DaiOuJou.
I'm gonna get round to properly exploring Ketsui soon though, because I've got the cartridge over there as well. So
nice, you got the PGM bootleg.
I've got the PGM bootleg, man. Don't say that; I'll get arrested.
Well, I mean the official PGM bootleg.
The official bootleg, yeah.
That's yes.
Yeah, I'm not paying it over the odds for the official one.
Yes. The rare limited official.
Yeah.
Okay, now we get to
number 1.
Now, let me explain something behind the scenes. The landslide victory that is Battle Garegga makes this number 1 choice in terms of popularity undisputed. It wasn't like I was sitting there like, I wonder who's gonna win. Oh, Ketsui is so close. It was like massive margin of victory. Battle Garegga owned, I don't know how much, I can't remember how much, but it was such a wide margin that there was no competition. No one came even close to touching Garegga in terms of its choice of number 1. I mean, it was just like it's landslide victory. So in terms of popularity, there's no dispute. How much it just owned the rest of the competition. Even the Touhou people, it just wrecked everyone. But it is interesting in terms of what people feel about the game's soundtrack, because doesn't it owe a lot of credit to Underground Resistance, right? Or have you not heard about this? Is this breaking?
No.
Okay, so before we get into that point, how do you feel about Battle Garegga's OST?
I love it. Okay, so you know we were saying Namiki has 6 soundtracks in top 20?
Yeah.
Well, this was also him. So
what?
And this was like, yeah, this was 6 years before DaiOuJou, and
I didn't know that. So he has 7.
Yes.
Wow.
And it's on chip.
Surprise. That's a surprise. I actually didn't know that.
It's on chip with the Yamaha OPL2 FM. So like this is like a super limited palette, 9 channels of 2 oscillator synth with some effects and some channel specific noise. But this was him. This was him way before those other 2 games. So as I said, he is the master.
Amazing.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. It's also so much cleaner sounding, I think, than the later games that that we just talked about.
Yes.
DaiOuJou.
Yes.
And Ketsui, because of the way that the synthesis works, you can really hear everything that's going on super clearly. And by the way, this was the same FM synthesizer chip that was in the Sound Blaster Pro card in the 90s.
Oh, nice. That was what people used to play PC games, right?
Yes, totally.
Yes, yeah. I never had any of that stuff when I was
it sounds great though.
PC gaming. Yes, Fly to the Leaden Sky or whatever. I don't know. Leaden Sky is in the title somewhere.
Again with the kind of 90s house piano.
Now.
Love that.
Now, let's pull up YouTube, my friend.
Oh gosh, have we got another arrange?
No. No, we don't. Let's type in Battle Garegga Underground Resistance.
Are you saying that he's ripped off another artist for this soundtrack?
It is undeniable. It's not like Paramore and Olivia Rodrigo. Like, oh, did you? No, it's undeniable. So let's see if we can find the track. Jupiter Jazz.
Okay, I'm hearing that for sure. What year was this then? 1992, 4 years before Battle Garegga.
Yeah,
wow.
It's pretty commonly discussed that he like sampled this in the Battle Garegga OST.
I mean, it's hard to dispute. Wow. Okay.
Truth. The truth comes out. But that's not my favorite track of Battle Garegga. The Sky Stage. Yeah, so apparently the Battle Garegga OST took a ton of influence from this band, Underground Resistance, and this type of music. I don't know if it's, this was back in the 90s when, remember Kurt Cobain talked about like ripping off More Than a Feeling by Boston, and he wasn't getting sued. It's not today's music where if you play 3 notes from another guy's song, you're getting sued.
I know. Different times, eh?
Yeah.
Is this the water music?
No water stage this time around.
No water stage.
There's the Sky Stage. You know what's funny is there was an early version of Shmup Retro Arch that I was using where you could do a little bit of run ahead to reduce lag, but it was like in its really early forms, and one of the bugs of it was that it would cause the music to play slower and deeper, and it sounded awesome. I was kind of sad when they patched it. I was like, no! You get chopped and skewed Battle Garegga music. But this song especially sounded awesome when it was all slowed down.
Yeah.
I love the I love this song. This is my favorite Garegga track, and one of my
brilliant
favorite
groove, isn't it?
One of my favorite songs in Shmups.
That bass groove is really, really cool.
Yeah, it is. You mentioned it before. What I really like about the Garegga soundtrack is how clean it is. It's just crispy clean compared to like Batrider and a lot of those other soundtracks of its peers. It just sounds so clear. Like me and Bog were arguing about this with Batrider or Garegga. I kind of like how it's a lot more bass and middle note rather than having a lot of like treble and all that or whatever.
I think one of the things that typifies FM synths compared to like analog, like subtractive synthesis, is that they can be quite thin sounding, and so the further up the octave range you get, the more it starts to sound really brittle and thin.
Yeah.
Whereas if you focus on the lower ranges of things, you can still have a degree of depth, I think, and that's maybe something that you're referring to.
Yes,
but
I
still
said
with the
that
space,
exactly,
like, it's not muddy.
but in a more layman's way. I said the sound chips sound like shit when they're up high, and they sound good when they're nice and low.
I think you're right. Yeah. But the problem that I find is like, this was, 1996, and this is a very limited sound palette that Namiki's using here. And when you look at like the later games, like DaiOuJou, even though the music is amazing, when you hear it playing off the board, they sound so muddy. They sound so kind of smooshy and muddy because of the digital compression artifacts on the PC, because they had such limited RAM on the boards. They had to squash the audio down to like a really small bit depth.
Really.
And in your memory, you think, oh god, the music is great, but they sound so shitty, But then you go back to this, and because it's all running on the chip, it's pristine sounding, and it's just so much easier to listen to.
Yes, yeah. It would be interesting to see how much the hardware affected the sound of the games. Not only like now, because like now you can go back and listen to it.
Oh, you can do anything now, I guess. Yeah.
But I mean, like in terms of like the composition, like there could have been parts where he's composing stuff for Garegga. He's like, the chip just can't do it. You know?
Yeah.
That'd
totally.
be interesting to see. We talked about that earlier with Deathsmiles, where it's like when you have a wide open playing field, it probably would have.
Right.
He would have probably came up with different stuff.
Yeah, but again, with anything like sometimes the most interesting stuff is created with like really hardcore limitations. You know,
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
well, I have to push this to the absolute extreme to get it to do what I want to do, and sometimes that's where you find the really unique stuff. 2818, is that the final boss? I'm not sure.
Let's get there.
It's an absolutely insane, panic-inducing boss theme.
Yes, the squid.
Whoa!
This fight is brutal. There's a lot of
This game is brutal.
RNG. There's a lot of RNG too, where if you get if you get really nice RNG, he just shoots you with pea shooters and it's like super easy. Or you get really bad RNG where you just double shotgun and you're just dead. Or you have to be really good. You can dodge.
And there's
but
nothing
it's
that
really hard.
influences that? It's just completely random?
It's Garegga, baby. You just have to accept the RNG. Yeah. My clear, I got really lucky. I got like a really generous RNG. And then I had one where I almost cleared where I got like double shotgun and I was like, all right, fine, I lose.
Yeah.
Don't double shotgun me, please. If you're really good, I'm sure you can dodge both, but it's really
I'm going to
hard.
watch it back.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely some PCM elements, sample-based elements to this, besides the FM synthesis. You
What
can hear
about the
like
guy going,
and like some of the cymbals aren't FM.
So it's mixed in. So it's mixing in samples.
It's like a
That's
hybrid of really shitty sounding samples with. But I think he leans mostly on the FM synthesis, and that's why you have that clean sound for most of the soundtrack.
great. Yeah.
It sounds great. Do you agree with its placement?
That's a good point.
I mean,
What do you think? I got to think about that for a sec.
I don't know, man.
I would say it's. Yeah.
You're saying yeah?
Yes. Because the funny thing is that like the soundtrack is so iconic and it's so good. Sure, he took a little passage or two from Underground Resistance, but that's shmups, baby. That's how we roll.
But he went somewhere very different with it as well.
Yes,
It wasn't
yes.
just like that for the whole thing. I
Yeah.
think it's fair enough to have like a really obvious
Plus,
jumping off point.
Plus, it feels a little unfair because I feel like we let all these famous hip hop albums stand up as classics, right? People don't say, "Hey, Kanye West sampled way too much stuff in College Dropout," you know. So, you know, just from also too, I don't think it's a big deal personally, but
It's not a big deal. It's
But
what you do with it. It's not where it comes from.
people really bring that up, so I thought it'd be interesting to talk about.
Yeah. I don't know. I think for me, and might be controversial, I think out of that list, it's probably Radiant Silvergun for me. I just love
Silvergun's fantastic. I think one reason why Garegga works so well is it is kind of this balancing point between the two styles, though. It's the balancing point between chiptune Thunder Force 4 and then what we get later on with like Silvergun and the PS1 era with samples and PC audio
the more
or
techno
CD
stuff.
audio.
Yeah.
It's like a real balancing point. And what's funny is Garegga itself is a balancing point between old school shmups and new school shmups. It's like the divider between the two. Because after Garegga, we get Bullet Hell, and Garegga's kind of like a borderline Bullet Hell itself.
Right. Yeah.
And but it's also influenced
There's
by
old school elements.
So it's such a fascinating lining up of not only the gameplay elements, but also the musical elements. I don't know about visual elements though, because Garegga feels like it's still ahead of its class with visuals. The visuals of this game are incredible.
I always find that in other art disciplines as well. Like it's the kind of dividing line. It's the tipping point where something isn't quite sure what it is. It's still kind of halfway between two different things. That's the most interesting to me.
Right.
You get that with music all the time. Like when bands figured out what it is they do and do well, it's like, okay, now you're just going to do that one thing now.
Yeah.
But it was when they were in sort of exploration mode and like trying different shit.
The discography where they're in that sort of famous example of this is, well, no, actually no. So I'll go to a different example. I was going to say Nirvana, but In Utero is my favorite Nirvana album, so that's the thing.
Yeah.
So a lot of bands, like they'll have those early years where they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
And then they kind of figure it out. And then they have those like two really, you did it, you figured it out. albums, and then they tip past it, and then they kind of go the other direction.
Just rehashing the old ideas.
Yes, there's that real, like My Chemical Romance. There you go, My Chemical Romance. They hit the 3 cheers for Sweet Revenge. It's like, you did it, you guys did it, and then the rest of the discography kind of falls off, at least for me. Well, we did it. We made it through the top
6 hours.
Shmup soundtracks of all time. It only took us 5 hours.
Amazing, dude. Right, awesome. Well, I'm going to get some lunch.
I'm going to go get breakfast.
You go and then go to work? Oh my god.
Then go to work.
Mate, what a legend.
So thank you to the $5 patrons, 100 accepting Panda, Admiral Coconut, Anhold, Alexander Pfeiffer, Anthony A, Arcade Hell, Arrow Viper, Auto-Named, Beam Pit, Bo, Ben, Beto Dames, Bog Hog, Chase Palumbo, Chris Yusufovich, Christopher Freeze, Chronic Burnout 3, Clara Cliff, Climby Coyote, Coast, Colorboy, Cooksand666, Cook Some Soup, Des Audio, Dan Chi, Darren Griffin, Dave Hansen, David Crespo, Delta Tango 6, Dick Jones, Dingo, Disco Stas Leia, DJ420, Praise It, Dr. Bosky, Elias Alonso, Evan Serafet, FCK, F Deluxe, Friskin, Frames Per Human, Francisco, Full Set, Game Boy Guru, Geese Machine, GPM, Hausu, Jake Ryan, JLab, JB RPG, Gene Hans, John Kelly, George Sand, K-Horse, K2, Contain, Praise the Boys, Low Casting, Meshpa, Malaise, Mars Bar, Matt O'Leary, Maz, Megadeth 859, Minung, Munro, Nathaniel Davis, Neon Dagger Games, Okla Kugels, Pedro Perez, Psycho Blizzard, Queen Charlene, Raul, Real Skeen, Retro Schmupper, Riff Mason, Rolf015, Scanline City, Seesaw FW, Shazzy, Shmup Junkie, Sarah Pong, Spiders STG, Steve Fiction, Street Magic, Super Funk, SW1335, Tamzarian, Takero Mucho, Taze, The Boot Rex, The Dirty Screech, The N1, The Old Bensta, Touhou Rizardi, TRM, Sugumo, Tsuwayu, Twilight EX, Unikoi Roots, Ursula, Ushi Mushi, Vic Viper, Beautiful, Wabby Legs, Yosef, Zachary Patton, and Zeo. Thanks so much.